The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, game toppers, reviewing 7 games in one episode, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, Alex and Abby team up to review 7 games from wallet-sized game publisher Button Shy Games. Then the Dukes take a look back at their review of Tapestry in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 235, 7-Button Army. 7-Button Army. That title suggestion thanks to Joshi and Gurr. Alex, you're talking about some Button Shy games, 7 of them to be in fact.
It is in fact to be.
In fact, to be. Woo, boy. And we're talking about Tapestry, and there's an army component in Tapestry. So that's like 7 Nation Army. What's that, the White Stripes?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it.
Wasn't there? So they're married, right? Or they were married at one point, but they wanted everyone to think that they're brother and sister. Is that right?
I have no idea.
You don't know about that? I think that's a thing.
I don't know much about much, Sean. I do know it was the White Stripes. I do know the song. That song is a classic now. It came out, it's been out for a good chunk of time.
Early 2000s, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So good job, Josh and Gurr. Thanks for helping us name this episode. In fact, our other guild members are also trying to help name these episodes, and they do that over on our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2008. This is a rough start, Alex. A rough start.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with you tonight. I know I'm tired. I'm exhausted, as I'll get into during this intro segment. Can I get into it now?
Well, I'm also tired, but that's fine. Yeah, you get into it.
No, I'm going to take pride. I'm tired right now, Sean.
Okay.
I'm tired of this pandemic, but more specifically, I'm tired because I'm trying to cram a lot of work in ahead of some vacation time next week. Going to go visit my folks down in Tampa, one of several cities Abby and I may look to move to. We have Tampa, Nashville, and Raleigh-Durham as the top 3 host city candidates.
You just got there. You just got to St. Louis.
No, I haven't just gotten here.
Yeah, like a week ago. 2 weeks.
I've been here
tops.
3 years. 3 years, my dude.
That's not right.
Think about it.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Yeah, August of 2017. I worked 2 full years at Gray Fox, and then it's been a year since I was at Gray Fox. So yeah, 3 years and change.
You can't put roots down or roots.
Roots?
Are you is that gonna be it? Are you gonna be done moving?
I make no promises on that front.
Why the move? Why a move?
We don't. One of the things I miss most about New Mexico, and one of the things that I know affects Abby a lot, is lack of sunlight. And New Mexico spoils you in that front because it's 310 plus days of sunshine a year, whether you're in Albuquerque or Santa Fe. That is not the case in St. Louis. Not only are the winters frequently bitterly cold.
Sure.
Snow is fine. Snow is lovely when it happens. If you get it every single day, you're gonna go a little stir crazy. But it's the lack of sunlight. It gets awfully cloudy here, and it affects me. It affects Abby. It affects both of us. So we want to be somewhere a little bit warmer, and hey, we're looking to plant roots, get a house, start a family, all that fun stuff. So if we're gonna make a move, this is the time to look at it.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
When are you looking? When's that going to be?
So we have a goal board that I have in view every day, which has different goals, some of which have been accomplished, like savings goals, getting married, doing Whole30 together. And one of those goals is tied to making a decision on where to plant roots. And that decision is set for to be made by the end of this year.
Okay.
So current plan is to check out Tampa this coming weekend, do a road trip to Nashville sometime probably before the end of the month. And then Abby's family's in North Carolina. So while we're out visiting them for Thanksgiving, pop on down to Raleigh-Durham, see how we like that.
Well, right now, my vote, if I get a vote, and I think I should get 2 votes, in fact, is for Nashville so that I can come visit and have delicious hot chicken. That's my vote.
It is amazing. Hattie B's hot chicken is sensational. So here, part of the reason Nashville's on the list. One, we went about this very methodically. We had a row of like different things that we care about: weather, food culture, traffic, all sorts of things, and we kind of put a check or an X next to had to be 25, 30 different cities that we were considering. And these were the top scorers. But beyond that, I spent a summer living in Nashville when I was in college, and it was one of the best places I ever lived. Just super green, lots of parks. Folks seem to tend to enjoy living life. I don't know. I enjoyed that city a lot, and I'm not a country music guy. So it has nothing to do with that.
I was going to say, you can get your country music career started out there, but got to believe in yourself, Alex.
Me and my not a guitar, because I don't know how to play guitar. So that's my update. I'm just kind of stressed cramming for that. I've been taking on some more responsibilities at work, and life is mostly fine, I would say. So how about you? Dukes of Diet update?
Yeah, Dukes of Diet. So I am down a net pound from last time we recorded. If you will recall, I went up slightly. So I'm at 243, which is down like 3 or 4 pounds from the last episode. But like I said, down 1 net pound from my lowest a couple weeks ago or a month ago or so. So that's good. Yeah, can't really complain. What I will say, Alex, I know how much you love when I talk about the Dresden Files.
Oh, yes, of course.
But some listeners do, in fact. On Twitter at Sublime Stars, she says that she loves it when I mention the Dresden Files on the podcast. And feel free to give some spoiler-free thoughts on Battleground after I read it. So, yikes. Yeah, I finished it. I finished it in about 4 days. And let me just say this. After I finished reading the last one, which was Peace Talks, I turned around and I listened to it. So I read it and then I listened to it on Audible. It's been a couple days since I finished, and I don't have the emotional energy to start listening to it on Audible, if that says anything. I think that Peace Talks was so-so. This was all basically one book that they chopped in two. And I think Peace Talks was the lesser half. This was really good. It was really good, but emotionally draining. It was good. It was really good. So there you go, Alex.
Okay.
You should read.
I have not read
these.
anything in that sphere.
So here's what I tell people. Ellie is reading them. I think he's like on book 4 or 5. The first 3 books in the series, this was like book 16, by the way. The first 3 books are super rough. Like the first book is bad. It's bad.
I look. Why would I dive into a series where I have to read 3 whole books?
Motainai.
No, that takes a play or 2. That doesn't take 3 books. Come on, man.
I'm just saying, basically, some things are worth trudging through. Some things are worth it, Alex.
I can trudge through a season of a bad TV show. This is the equivalent of 3 seasons of a TV show. But don't worry, it gets good in seasons 4 through 18 or whatever.
Yeah, totally. That's worth it. Really high highs, Alex. Really high highs. That's fine.
I'm happy to hear you're enjoying it. I think it's unlikely I'm going to join that train.
It's too bad, Alex. That's too bad. So at Sublime Stars, you should help me convince Alex to trudge through the first couple books. Speaking of books, Alex, I'm not sure exactly now, but I think before our next episode drops, I think the cult classic callback episode with our friends Aaron and Lindsay, where I will be guesting on, I think that will likely have dropped by then, or before then, I should say.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to be on to talk about the 1984, right? 1984 David Lynch movie, Dune, based on my favorite book of all time, Dune.
Of course they'd have you on for this.
Yeah, of course. So be sure to check that out. Really great show. I just listened to the last episode with Rob Davio where they talked about E.T. So, yeah.
All right. Nice plug.
Yeah.
My plug is, do I have a plug?
No, let's just talk about games.
This is
you plugged your life.
Plug.
You plugged your life and your move.
I'm plugging. It's not official yet. During Essen, I will possibly be on an event on a Saturday, an online event playing a game called Hint. thanks to listener Jonas Resting Jeppesen helping promote that game. So anyway, I might be on that on a Saturday. And by might, I mean I am scheduled to be and will be. So stay tuned. And maybe I'll post something about it. I'm going to post something about it. I don't know why I'm dancing around this so much, Sean. It's weird.
I've got one more plug.
Do you?
No, I just wanted to outplug you, but it's fine.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
No, we're talking about games now. All right.
Okay.
I'm Ducal moving on. We're done. Here we go. Sean, I've been playing some games.
Yeah, not really. Yes and no. Yes and no. So we're kind of doing a weird thing where I'm going to talk a little news in here. But first, I did get my first out and about play recently, which was really nerve-wracking. I have not really done that. I had played Imperial Struggle with Rory a while back, but this was like my first play with other people at Empire. It was four of us. Three of the four of us were masked up pretty much the entire time. The fourth person, who shall remain nameless, was quote unquote eating and drinking the entire time. And we were like, dude, or dudette, although it was four guys. So dude. So anyway, it was a little nerve-wracking.
Was it Rory?
I'm not going to say.
It was definitely Rory.
Yeah. Anyway, so we played another 18xx game, 1824. This takes place in Austria-Hungary, which is where, a lot of great railroad games happen, I suppose. So here's the thing with 18xx. They're kind of boring to listen to people talk about them. And even like the naming convention of 18xx, where it's 1824, 1846, 1830, and yeah, there are subtitles to these games. In fact, I can't remember what the subtitle to this. I think it's like just 1824 Austria-Hungary. Can you check that out for me? What the subtitle is?
Sure.
1824.
I'll give it a go.
You can do it. I believe in you.
All right.
So it's kind of tedious to be like, whoa, it's different from this other 18xx game because of this or that. It's not great podcast material, I don't think. Unless you're like an 18xx podcast, or unless you're like Heavy Cardboard. But most of our listeners, I don't think, are necessarily coming here for it. But what I will say is it is probably the best 18xx game I've played thus far. And I think this is my sixth. I've played 1846, 1830. I've played 18 mechs, and I've played 1864. See what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, it's weird, right?
1824 Austrian-Hungarian Railway.
Okay. So very briefly, 18xx games are a combination of route building, cooperative route building, sort of, and some sort of stock game where you have these railroad companies that you're investing in. And if you have the majority share in them, you're going to be the president or the director, and you get to decide how that company is performing. And you're basically trying to buy new trains that can reach out to additional cities. The more cities you're able to go to, the more money you're going to get. And then you make decisions whether to pay out to your shareholders, including yourself, or withhold that money because you need to worry about buying new trains and things like that. And so what sets 18xx games apart from one another is how much of it is an operational game, how much of it is a stock shenanigan game. And 1824 is very light on the stock shenanigans, which is fine. Sometimes you want stock shenanigans. Alex, can you say stock shenanigans 3 times fast?
Stock shenanigans, stock shenanigans, stock shenanigans.
Yep.
Got 3 of them.
3.
Anyway.
You got 3. All right. This was very much an operational game where you are laying out these different tiles. There are these initial yellow tiles you lay out, and then eventually at a certain point in the game, you can upgrade those to green tiles, upgrade those to brown tiles, which kind of expand the routes for the cities where you're getting your income. It upgrades the value of those cities. And it's really interesting because in a lot of games, you have these minor companies and then the major railroad companies. And the minor companies have a very minor part for the initial part of the game. And right off the bat, though, you're into the major companies, and the minor companies are giving you these little benefits, or they might, you might be able to use them in such a way that they can help lay track for the major companies. Here, the major companies don't even come into play for the first couple hours, which is really interesting. You have all of these minor companies that you start off with, and there's no auction to get them. A lot of these 18xx games start with auctions. Here, you just buy them for their face value in a snake turn order. And so there's like these 3 pink or reddish companies or pink companies, and these are the state companies. And eventually the state companies are going to merge into one of the major companies. And by owning portions of the pre-state companies, is actually what they're called, you're going to get guaranteed a certain number of shares in the major company. It was really interesting. This had a lot of, I mean, all of these games have a lot of decision points, but this one seemed to have a lot extra decision points every game. And sometimes it's refreshing not to have stock shenanigans, which is, again, this one didn't have, but it was still really interesting. There's this component where certain trains get exported every round or every full operating round. And what are you doing? What are you doing?
No, you'll finish off your explanation.
Okay,
I have something.
All right.
I have something prepared.
For the record, Alex has written something down. He's I don't know, he's going to do his Karnak impression. He's holding against his forehead. So long story short, it's a good game and I enjoyed it. It is not an intro 18xx game and it was quite good. Go ahead, Alex.
Sean Ramirez.
Yes.
I have looked up the world's hardest tongue twister according to MIT.
Oh, okay.
It is, and I wrote it down, and I'm going to show it to you.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure you can read it. Can you see what I'm showing you on
you
the
gotta,
screen?
No, you got to pull it. Pull it way back.
How about here?
Okay. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. What?
That's not too bad.
No, that's the hardest.
Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. Apparently.
All right. I mean, wasn't easy. I wouldn't say it by choice.
Look, I just did a Google search for hardest tongue twister ever, and that is what came up.
Well, good. That was good radio.
It's a 2013 article.
Oh.
I will say maybe that's information is out of date.
Yeah, the world of tongue twisting moves at breakneck speed, Alex. That's like
10 times as fast as anything else.
So anyway, that's 1824, and that's the world's hardest tongue twister according to a 2013 article. Remember 2013, Alex? What a world.
It was a while back. Where was I in 2013? Let's see. This was pre-podcast. We hadn't started doing the podcast yet, but I had moved to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
So, and I think we'd met at that point.
Yeah, we had met at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
We met in 2012, like 2011, 2012.
No, I know that. That's why I'm I'm pretty sure we met. So, all right. Well, good story. Anyway.
Great. Board games. Go.
So I like to, every now and then when we're getting review games in for the Dukes of Dice, the easiest way to order them is through Miniature Market and have me go pick them up. And one of my favorite things to do at Miniature Market is to take pictures of really deep discounts because they have insane in-store discounts and send them to Sean.
Torture me with them.
I sent you 2 this time around. And, and these are games I think you own.
I own.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But it was Voyages of Marco Polo for $30 in-store price at Miniature Market. And then Steam, this was a crazy deal, $20 for Steam Rails to Riches. So anyway, but while we were there picking up Fort, we always buy something else in addition to it. And so this time around, I bought The Crew. I have The Crew now. Bought Azul Summer Pavilion, which the copy we'd been playing was Jamie Stegmeier's. Had been borrowing that from before the pandemic and then returned it during the pandemic. And then we picked up a game that caught Abby's eye. And it's a game called Floor Plan. It's by Merrick Tupi. I don't know if that's a correct pronunciation. It almost never is. It's released by Deepwater Games. Sean, do you know Deepwater Games offhand?
Sounds very familiar. I will go double check.
It's Welcome To.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Same company as Welcome To. So Floor Plan is it's a floor plan drawing game. Basically, you are going to roll 2 dice. And this is much like Welcome To, as it's a 1 to 100 experience. So you roll 2 dice, and then you all play it however makes sense for your board at the time. You have these little blueprint maps. You will roll 2 dice, and with the 2 dice, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to draw a room and label the room, or you're going to add features to your blueprint. So it could be, let's say you rolled a 5 and a 4, you would draw a 4x5 room that is either a kitchen or a dining room. Whereas if I rolled a 5x2 room, it would be a 2x5, square room on my board that would either be a giant bathroom or a dining room. And then there are features. So you can, if you have, say, a 1 and a 6, you would draw 1 tree and 6 stones. Stones are kind of used to outline pools. There are deck sections. There's furnishings, windows, doors between rooms. The whole point of this, though, is you are trying to meet client demand. So imagine Welcome To, but you're just trying to accomplish the goals on the card pretty much. There's no other bonus points or other things or rows you're trying to complete. You're trying to kind of complete these complicated goals. And you have one of each different type of goals. There are build clients, design clients, and layout clients. Each of them have 2 different goals on there. One of them is an endgame door goal on the layout side. On the design side, it's 2 goals. For instance, on Sachio, Sachio's goals are Serene Escape. You have a bedroom containing a window with a view to a tree. So that should be a window looking out to a tree. And then Family Pool, a pool with 8 or more water squares adjacent to 8 or more squares of deck. And so the game is incentivizing you, and you can accomplish each of these goals multiple times. When you accomplish a goal, you fill it in on the bottom of your sheet. It lets you unlock different bonuses. First person to get 6 goals triggers end of the game. Everyone else will play 1 round, and that is how things go. The game itself is fine. There's some amount of imagination of this house is dumb. Like in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, you would come up with these absurd houses, and sometimes you'd get into the theme, sometimes you wouldn't. This is one where you get a slightly more into the theme. Hey, I'm just going to make this tree because I need to make this tree, and ultimately there's this bathroom that's connected to the kitchen and the dining room and nothing else, or these bedrooms that are stacked together. I don't know. You actually build a physical space, and there's something really cool about that. Most of them make no sense because you're trying to optimize towards goals, not optimize towards building the perfect house. I will say this is props to Deepwater. They went above and beyond in terms of accessibility. Diversity. Diversity and inclusion is what I'm trying to get at. They have folks who are handicapped, Asian, Black, Hispanic, of all different genders, and they actually have, for each of the clients, they have gender pronouns for all of them. So you have he, him, she, her, they, them. So yeah, that was something that I noticed, not because it's something games shouldn't do, just because it's something that you don't see a lot of games do, right? It's something that is rare to see, so props to Deepwater for doing that. Game itself was enjoyable enough. We'll get a few more plays out of it, I'm sure, but it's no Welcome To. If you're expecting something on that level, you're not gonna find it. Welcome To is a much better game. This one had some moments of enjoyment, some moments of thematic fun, but ultimately I would defer to Welcome To.
Have you played Fantastic Factories also from Deepwater?
I have played Fantastic Factories. It's quite good.
Yeah, I think it's really good. So
yeah,
people that say I don't like light games, it's a pretty good light game.
Yeah, light medium.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're quibbling. Sean, you want me to talk about my second one because you have a news item that you want to kind of sneak into this section?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I dropped stuff on the floor. So we're about to talk about this during the review section, but basically, Kyle Guajardo, listener of the podcast, sorry, Kyle, if I butchered your last name, helped volunteer with Gray Fox Games while I was there, listens to the show, has sent me games during quarantine in order to get me to get as close as I can to 100 new games before the end of the year, from the middle of the year to the end of the year. I'm at about 52 last I checked, and I'm not on pace to make the goal. It would take a pretty extraordinary effort. A lot of the games he sent were Button Shy games, which we're talking about soon, but one that I didn't talk about because it's not a Button Shy game, but is a small box game, is a game called Orchard. Sean, have you played Orchard, a 9-card solitaire game?
I have not.
This is a 2018 Golden Geek Award winner for Best Print and Play Game. This is a game designed by Mark Tuck and published by our friends over at Side Room Games out of Albuquerque.
Oh, okay, cool.
At least the edition I was playing. Again, this is, 2018 one for Best Print and Play at the time. Orchard is quite literally a 9-card solitaire game, and it is brilliant. Ironically, for a 9-card solitaire game, it comes with 18 cards, but the primary reason it comes with 18 cards is so you can play games back-to-back. 2 quick rounds back-to-back of this. How the game works is you have a deck of 9 cards with 6 trees in various patterns. You have apples, you have pears, and you have grapes. You're going to lay 1 card on the table to start, and then the other 8 form the deck that you're going to use for your play of that round. You'll draw the top 2 cards on the deck, and then you're ready to play. On your turn, you're going to take another card and play it so it overlaps with the card underneath, so that the trees underneath match. So apple matches to apple, pear matches to pear, grape matches to grape. You want to overlap, in most cases, as many as you possibly can. When you make an overlap, you're then going to take fruit dice and put those fruit dice on top of the card where the overlap was. So if I overlapped 1 apple with 1 apple, I'd put a 1 die on top of that. In a future round, if I were to overlap that again, I would take that die, lift it up, and make that die a 3. If I covered it again, it would go from a 3 to a 6, and then it would go from a 6, it can max out at a 10 in this edition of Orchard. I'd heard from Steve O'Rourke, the name father, that in earlier editions it maxed out at 6. What's cool is you also get these 2 spoiled fruit tokens. Once per round, you are allowed to mismatch what you're covering. You're allowed to put a grape on top of a pear or something along those lines. And when you do so, you'll take one of the rotten fruit tokens, place it on there to indicate, hey, this wasn't a good overlap, and also you can't cover this space for the rest of the game. Your goal is to get the highest score you possibly can. And it gives you different guidelines for what that score can look like. My best score, I think, was 49 in this. Top score that they have on the chart is, I think, 55 plus. So I certainly didn't maximize efforts. I had a ton of fun with this. Abby had a ton of fun with this. As far as solo games go, it's a brilliant design. Brilliant design. Really elegant, really simple, but really puzzly and thinky, and one that, even just talking about it, I kind of want to break out and just play a quick round while we're doing this now. I'm not going to, because that would be disrespectful, Sean.
Never. You would never do anything like that.
No, I've never watched hockey games while we've recorded this podcast before. So, yeah. Sean, I would strongly recommend this if you haven't tried it.
Can I just say, Alex, as you were holding up the cards to me on camera, I'm really concerned about your nail and cuticle health.
It's awful.
You need some like vitamin E or something to like rub in to really strengthen them and rejuvenate them. Just saying.
My biggest issue is I bite and nibble on my nails a lot. I think that's the bigger thing than the vitamin E. But
well, I'm just saying it could help. That sounds interesting. Orchard,
thanks, Dr. Sean.
Not the nail health.
No, of course. So anyway, those are the 2 games I've played, Floor Plan and just recently talking about Orchard. Sean, what is the game that you aren't playing, but are playing, but is actually a news item?
Oh, interesting that you phrased it that way. So Magic, Alex. Have I ever mentioned Magic the Gathering? First mention?
Way too many times. Also, Baseball Highlights 2045 first mention.
Yeah, perfect.
Like, not enough love.
So
anyway.
what's interesting, I've been playing a decent amount of Arena. So there's these ranked Arena matches, and they reset every season. A season lasts like 40 days or something. And for the first time ever, I managed to reach the Mythic rank, which is the highest rank. So it goes bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and then Mythic. If you are able to top 8 Mythic, then there's like an invite to the Pro Tour. If you're in the top 1,200, then you're invited to a special online tournament that can also help you qualify. I couldn't get to the top 1,200 within Mythic, but it's the first time I reached Mythic. It was really cool. I was very excited. Although it was because there was a terrible, the deck. This is a bad standard season. It's been bad. Standard's been bad for a couple of years now. But what I've been doing a lot of is I've been getting a lot of the pre-constructed commander decks, which is my favorite Magic format I've talked about before. It's this 100-card singleton deck. And one of my favorite shows to listen to or watch on YouTube is the Command Zone. And they do these cool deck techs where whenever one of the new pre-constructed decks come out, they say, here's 10 cards you should take out, and here's a budget $25 list of cards that you should put in to replace them. And it kind of brings up the power level of the deck, focuses the deck a little bit more. And so I've been doing that, buying up singles online and going through my collection, organizing my collection. Really fun. So that's something I've been doing. But what I wanted to talk about that's also kind of news related, I could talk about Magic news like every episode and there'll be plenty to talk about, but I usually refrain. This is something that's been really bad and divisive. So on the October 12th at 10 a.m., a sale is ending for a special release of Magic cards. So if you are listening to this and you're a Patreon supporter, a patron, you may have a day or so to check this out. Otherwise, unless you're listening to this like right at release on Monday, this is already come and gone. But they're doing a collaboration with The Walking Dead, AMC's The Walking Dead, for these 5 cards plus a couple tokens. Okay, doesn't sound so bad at first because they've done collaborations in the past. In the past, they've done My Little Pony, they've done Transformers, and they've also done some Godzilla cards. However, with My Little Pony and Transformers, they were silver bordered, meaning they weren't necessarily they weren't tournament legal. And so they're just for collectors. For the Godzilla cards, they were functional reprints of already existing Magic cards, and you were allowed to use them in tournaments that would allow those cards otherwise. Also fine. These cards are completely tournament legal in Legacy, Vintage, which are the 2 oldest formats, not Standard, which is fine, but they're also legal in Commander. And Commander is probably the most popular Magic format at this point, and these are highly designed for Commander, focused on Commander. They're trying to sell these to Commander players. These cards are not going to see play in Legacy or Vintage, I don't think, but they're definitely going to see play in Commander. And okay, what's the big deal? So I think for most Magic players, it's already kind of baked into the cake that the whole model is somewhat predatory. And you've made some amount of peace with that. And that's fine. There are these chase rares that come out every set. You open booster packs or you pay a premium for singles from a third-party vendor online or a friendly local game store. But about a year ago, they started doing these things called secret lairs, where they started doing these like flash sales. They only last like a couple days. And once they make them available, that's pretty much it. And it's a direct sale from Magic's parent company, Wizards of the Coast, to consumer through their website. It's not going through a friendly local game store. It's not going through a third party. They're just basically printing money, right? Because for the most part, for 25 plus years, Magic, Wizards of the Coast has not been super focused on the secondary market. The secondary market's kind of done its own thing. But now they're selling directly to consumers. I have been interested in buying some of these secret lairs in the past, but they're usually these alternate art versions of cards that are already legal otherwise in whatever format. And they've done some like cool like theme releases, things where I've definitely been tempted, and they're usually like somewhere between 25 and 35 bucks, but I've never actually pulled the trigger. And then when this news came out about The Walking Dead, they started releasing cards. So the cards are, let me pull up the actual names. There is Daryl, Hunter of Walkers, Glenn, the voice of Calm, Michonne, Ruthless Survivor, Negan, the Cold-Blooded, and then Rick, Steadfast Leader. And all of these cards are super thematic. Like the theme is dripping through. They've completely captured that character from the Walking Dead TV show. And cool, great. None of them have been, until Rick, none of them seemed particularly powerful. But Rick is off the charts bonkers for a commander card, especially for your commander, which leads your deck. It's really wild. So here's the thing that a lot of people were saying. They were like, well, the power level on the cards that were revealed up until a couple days ago weren't too bad, but the problem is this is going to continue happening, and eventually Wizards is going to start just printing out these cards that are these must-have cards that are only available for a week. They're going to be tied in with other media. You're going to have your like Buffy the Vampire Slayer Magic cards, and then you're going to have your Pokemon Magic cards. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but maybe.
Oh, it will be.
That's the thing. And so it's not that I have a problem, and a lot of people, they don't necessarily have a problem with the crossovers, especially if it's this like silver bordered collectible thing, whatever. But it's this idea that they're going to start creating staple cards and they're only available for a week. And if they're with an IP, they're not going to necessarily have the ability to re-release them. So in other words, like let's say they start printing these cards that are now these format staples for legacy or for vintage. But the release of them is limited and the supply is super limited and the demand for them is super high. And now they're these $400 or $500 cards, which there are expensive Magic cards, but it's something that's kind of happened organically over a long period of time, not because Wizards is just deciding to print money. There was this huge uproar from a good chunk of the community. And they realized Wizards wasn't going to do anything different. Wizards has done something similar in the past and promised not to do it again. And now they're doing it again. And so what a lot of players asked was for the Commander Rules Committee to take action. The Commander Rules Committee runs the rules for the Commander format. They decide what cards are legal, what cards are banned, and the alternate rules for Commander, they're the ones that come up with, which is strange because usually all the other formats are controlled in-house by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast had allowed the Rules Committee to keep Commander because Commander is something that the Rules Committee created years ago when it was called EDH or Elder Dragon Highlander. So people were like, Rules Committee, you have got to ban these cards. We have to send a message to Wizards that this super predatory practice should not happen, cannot happen. And the Rules Committee was like, nope, we're not going to do it. We don't think it's our place and we're not going to do it. And it was pretty disappointing because it's sending a message to Wizards that part of it is the Rules Committee's like, if we do this, Wizards might come in and say, we no longer are going to allow the Rules Committee, like we're taking over. And
Sure.
they would be within their right to do that. I mean, they could do that at any time. And so there's this FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, I really want this Rick Grimes card because it's really, really good. But I don't want Wizards to do this. I'm okay chasing cards in booster packs, but by the way, it's $50. It's $50 for these 5 cards plus the tokens.
It comes with 12 cards, 5 creature cards, 1 artifact, 4 zombie tokens, and 2 treasure tokens.
Yeah. Really 5 cards. The rest are just tokens, essentially. And it's not even that. I've paid a good amount of money for a single card. It's not the price point necessarily, but it's the direct to consumer model. It's the fact that it's a very limited release. It's the fact. So here's the problem I was kind of mentioning before. Let's say that Wizards creates these cards that are staple cards that there's a high demand for a particular format and the price goes up. Well, every now and then Wizards can re-release them in alternate forms to kind of bring that price down, to infuse supply into the market, bring the price down. Cool. But because they are these IPs, they would have to renegotiate to pay for the ability to do so. Who knows what's going on with the licensing, but they're not going to necessarily have that ability. And everyone was like, okay, these cards aren't super powerful until they announce the Rick card. Rick and Morty. There's going to be Rick and Morty Magic cards at some point in the future.
So, Sean.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of research on this because Wizards of the Coast has responded to this.
They have responded
in several ways.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the responses was along the lines of, "Hey, this world is kind of Magic adjacent. We thought it was cool. It's full of zombies and combat. Not a stretch for us to be like, hey, what would a card look like?" That's sort of a paraphrase quote from one of the folks at Wizards of the Coast, product architect Mark Hagen, Heggen. But then there was a question, and this speaks to your main concern. When asked why and this is from GameSpot, to be clear. Mm-hmm. When asked why the Walking Dead set wasn't silver bordered like other crossovers, Forsyth said that it just didn't fit this new set. Forsyth is stand by.
He's like
R&D. R&D.
Yeah,
R&D.
Aaron Forsyth. Yeah.
Silver bordered sets are typically designed to be things that just do not work in black bordered Magic sets. He said, with this Walking Dead set, it seemed very easy to make Magic cards that did work well within the Magic rules. And so basically they determined, since you could actually play with these cards, we'll make them black bordered and enjoy.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people. In fact, Wizards on Facebook, they do a new ad every day because there's so many like angry faces, the unlikes essentially. And there's like so many people in the comments. It's at least 2-1, maybe 3 or 4-1 of people. They're like, nope, not going to do this, not supporting this, don't do this. And so they have to like do a new ad every day to get rid of that. I'm not buying these. I was going back and forth. I really want the Rick card. But I'm not going to do it. I would like to be part of the people sending a message to Wizards that this is not profitable. Don't do this again. Again, I'm okay chasing rares. I'm okay buying cards on the secondary market from third-party vendors. I'm okay with all of that. I'm not okay with this method, the secret lair method, essentially.
Well, Sean, needless to say, I won't be buying this set either.
Oh, bummer.
Just in solidarity.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, anyway, that's look at what we've been playing. No news this week, because Sean kind of already did that. But next up after the break, Abby and I tackle 7 different button-shy games.
So, Alex, with all of the dark, gritty superheroes, you've got things like The Watchmen, you got things like The Boys, all fantastic. But isn't it nice sometimes to just kind of snuggle into that nice, comfy blanket of superheroes are good guys and everything's, black and white, there's no gray? Wouldn't it be nice to just kind of live in that world where heroes can be heroes sometimes?
I sure do love my non-morally questionable hero, Sean.
So, Alex, have you ever played a game called Sentinels of the Multiverse?
I have played Sentinels of the Multiverse multiple times, both on the table and in app form.
Well, there is a brand new game coming out in the Sentinels comics world called Freedom 5 from our friends over at Arcane Wonders. Do you know anything about this game, Alex? Because I sure don't.
I do, Sean. It's a cooperative strategy game in which 1 to 5 heroes race to protect the city from an onslaught of villainy. You can face standalone challenges or adventure through a series of campaign comics where you'll gain rewards and new threats every single session. Immerse yourself in the world of Sentinel comics and test your wits against the dastardly smart AI in the newest evolution of the Defenders of the Realm series by Richard Launius with Adam and Brady Sadler. I just remembered all of that right off the top of my head.
Wow, I'm really impressed, Alex. Maybe you have some sort of superhero ability, some sort of superpower that just lets you remember copy. So, Alex, when is Freedom 5 coming out? How can people get their hands on this game?
So this is coming to Kickstarter October 20th of 2020. And here's the thing, Sean. If you pledge early, if you go to freedom5game.com, freedomfivegame.com, you can sign up for a free holofoil ability card set. It's going to be super cool. You're going to get more and more of them as the stretch goals increase. And get in on this. This is a collaboration between Arcane Wonders and Greater Than Games, Freedom 5.
You can check out Freedom 5 at that freedom5game.com website that Alex gave. You can also check out all of Arcane Wonders' other fantastic titles over at arcanewonders.com.
Arcane Wonders, it's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders. Well, Sean, in these tricky times, our friends at Game Toppers want to let folks know that they're still open for business. They're still doing what they can to provide some at-home gaming goodness to help people upgrade their gaming experience while they're trapped at home. So Late Pledge Manager is open on Game Toppers. They have a lot of great bundles on their website, some of which might sell out, so check it out before it gets too late. Also, mats are going to be able to be shipped out relatively soon, so if that's something you've been looking for, hey, great. Thanks to Game Toppers for supporting the podcast and for supporting gamers looking to upgrade their gaming experience.
So go visit them at GameToppersLLC.com.
Well, I am joined in this crazy endeavor, as I am in life, by not Abby, my girlfriend, not Abby, my fiancée, but Abby, my wife. Abby, how are you?
I'm good. I'm here as a wife. The Dukes of Wife.
The Dukes of Wife. Now, I will say, I roped you into this in a couple of ways. One we're talking about some nice wallet-sized games, and for the most part, as we'll talk about, these were all at least somewhat enjoyable experiences as we played through these button-shy games. But 2, we also made sure that you got a margarita.
Yep. That was the rule. You said, hey, do you care if we record? And I said, if I can have a margarita. And I had a margarita. So.
But you're not currently having a margarita. Right now you're rocking...
a lime and salt hard seltzer.
From Urban Chestnut, a nice local St. Louis brewery. I'm having a Santa Fe Brewing Company beer. All of this is leftovers, I believe, from our wedding booze because we overbought.
100%.
Yeah. So, all right, let's dig into this. Button Shy Games. This is a strange publisher. They only publish wallet-sized games. Most of these are meant to be pocket size. I believe, I don't know if it's a hard and fast rule, but all of them that we played, 18 or fewer cards. So we're going to review 7 of these bad boys. But to be clear, for components, they all come in these nice little plastic, colorful kind of wallet cases that have clear pockets for the cards, and then have a little rule book in there as well. That's the components. The components are going to stay the same. We might talk about art as we motor through these 7 games. Before we talk about any one of these specifically, Abby, what was your expectation when we first embarked on this endeavor? And actually, let me take a quick half step back. Big thank you to Kyle Guajardo, because without him, this is not possible. He sent along, knowing that I'm trying to play 100 games before the end of the year. He sent along, I think 10 or 11 are in that box. A good amount of games. And a lot of them button-shy games. All of them ones I hadn't tried yet. What was your impression of these games before having played them?
Well, we had played one button shy game before this box arrived, which this box also arrived when we were getting like random wedding gifts and stuff. And so I was like, ooh, what's this one? Like, this doesn't look like a person that I know. It's not. It's just games that we're going to mail back. I was like, oh, okay. But we had played Tussie Mussy beforehand. Came in the same little weird plastic pouch thing. And it looks like a nerd's business card holder. And it does.
Yeah, fair.
And we had played Tussie Mussy before, and I really liked Tussie Mussy. And so I was sort of open to the idea of these games because assuming like Tussie Mussy, there's only so many rules it can have when it has only 18 cards in a little tiny rule book.
That's what you thought.
Yeah, no, some of them were definitely like a lot thinkier than I expected, but none of them it was like, oh, this is going to be 20 minutes to learn how to play this game, and this is going to be a huge endeavor, and they're going to take forever, or anything like that. So I was very open to them.
There's one exception to that, which we will get to at some point in this stack. So we've got 7 of these, all stacked up in front of us. Not going to review Tussie Mussy. We've talked about that before. I really enjoyed Tussie Mussy.
Yep.
Brilliant little design, ton of fun, works really well at a number of different player counts. But we're not going to get into that one. We have 7 other ones that we're going to talk about. I thought about doing this in alphabetical order. I thought about doing this in reverse alphabetical order. And there were reasons why, for just aesthetic purposes, it didn't make sense for me to order it that way. But I decided to let the fates decide. And the fates are you, Abby. I have stacked these games in a random order. You can't see them from here,
okay,
but they go 1 to 7. There's 7 games we're talking about. I'm just going to have you pick a number between 1 and 7. And that's the next game we're going to review.
1.
1? Perfect. First game up is Potions Class. This is by Owen Wolkosh. This is a 2-player game with very basic elements. You have earth, fire, and water. And you have available potions sitting out in front of you on the table. 2 available potions at a time that are things like Potion of Steam, which takes a fire and 2 waters. You have a Potion of Terrain, which takes all 3 earth. They're double-sided, by the way. So there's a Potion of Muck, which is water and 2 earth, and on the other side of it is Potion of Lava. What you're going to do on your turn is you are going to draw 3 cards 1 at a time, and you're going to pick 1 to give to yourself, 1 to give to your opponent, and 1 to go face up on one of these potions that you're trying to make. Before you play those cards, if you have cards in hand, you're able to play those for free out to any of these potions. Your objective is to be the first to complete 3 potions first. Fairly simple. Game comes with, again, those element cards, and then it comes with these double-sided potion cards. 2-player showdown kind of game. So that's the rules of how you play. Art-wise, what did you think of the look of this game in terms of these potion cards?
I liked it. I like the art. It's pretty. It's bold. It's not too intricate. Looks very nice.
Yeah, it's got the calligraphy, a little bit of the calligraphy touch in the font on the cards themselves. It feels kind of old-timey. It doesn't feel straight up Harry Potter. There's almost like a little bit of a Celtic look to some of these elements.
Kind of stained glass, sort of, with the font, the Celtic bit. Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah. All right. Let's. So that's art. Let's dig into gameplay. Gameplay for this one, Abby. Did you find yourself enjoying this game?
Yes.
Why?
This game, and I told you this when we played it, had a bit of a sort of Hanamakoji feel to it, where you have to give your opponent cards too, and so you don't quite know. Your strategy is always changing because you don't know what you're going to get or what you're going to have to give them at any one time. And so it's a little less thought out than Hanamakoji. Your decision is the exact same every single turn. It's give them one, take one, play one. But there's still some strategy to it. It's quick. I liked it.
There are little other strategies in the game too of when do you want to try and burn a potion. You know partial information about what's in your opponent's hand, but you don't know full information. You know that if your opponent waits too long to play any of their cards, the potion's going to their hand explodes and basically goes back to the deck. So that part was interesting, and I think the early game of this can be really fascinating, right? Where you're trying to kind of gauge what's happening and maneuver and get the right potion out at the right time and gamble on, I hope Abby doesn't have, say, 2 earth cards right now or else I'm hosed. But as the game drags on, right, you run out of potions. There are only so many potions you have available, and they'll flip every time they kind of burn out of play, which as you get towards the end of the game happens pretty frequently. There's also the element of knowing kind of which elements are in the deck at a certain point. It's not a huge deck of cards, and I think that's probably...
That was our one big sort of
Yeah.
beef, was it was like, there's not enough cards. I know what's coming up. I know what you're about to get in your hand, and that you're going to win it because there's just not enough cards there.
And that's okay because it doesn't drag out.
Yeah.
It's not a overly long kind of game.
No, not at all.
But to me, I would rather play something like a Hanamakoji or something like... Ultimately, it didn't hook me enough. Like, I enjoyed elements of it. There's a little bit of a gamesmanship, and I always like this kind of I cut, you choose-ish type. It's not really that in this game, but this concept of having to give your opponent something to work with. And something that you may not have full choice over, right? If I wait until the last card comes out of the deck to give you something, we potentially have problems. I might give you the card you need to finish off a potion right then and there. So, yeah, that kind of I guess it's more of a push your luck kind of element to it, is fascinating and is a good core mechanic to base this off of. The end game for this didn't feel super satisfying to me. And it's not, I don't know. It didn't shine as a game as a whole. I can see why you definitely like it, though. It has those Hanamakoji kinds of elements. And it's by no means bad. Thematically, let's talk thematically really quickly. How did this game stack up in terms of a theme for you? Did you feel like you were brewing potions in Snape's classroom?
You always do this. You're always like, did you feel like you were on a train barreling through the city? Like, no, of course I didn't. I'm at my dining room table. In this particular instance, I was sitting on the couch playing that game. Like, no, I did not feel like I was brewing potions. I like the theme because it's not trains or outer space. Like, it's potions. It's cool. It works for what you need to do, and it works for a really simple game, like in terms of you've got earth, water, fire. Like, yeah, it was fine. I had no problems with the theme.
Okay. Now, I will say, to go back a step, have you ever felt like you weren't just sitting at a dining room table playing a game? Like, did Detective, for instance, when we played that, really rope you in?
That's Detective, and there was one exit game that I can think of where...
Was it the train?
No, it was the double box one, and we had to turn off the light.
Yeah.
And that was cool. That one felt sort of immersive at that moment.
Minor spoilers for one exit game, kind of.
I mean...
Not really.
That's not super spoiler. Just
that
we had to turn the light off.
The only other one I could think of where you might have would have been Fog of Love.
No, because I played that with you very early on in our relationship, and I don't do well in games like that. Like where
You did pretty well in that game.
Sure. I meant I'm not good at role play. Like that's not a thing that comes naturally to me in terms of games. Like you like to play D&D, and I don't think I would ever be able to get out of my own head enough to be like, I'm being ridiculous right now. So like that whole time I just felt like, how am I supposed to be this person? Like it never felt natural. It was way too difficult for me to think about it.
Got it. Okay. Back to potions class. Ultimately, so we rate things at the Dukes of Dice typically on a 6-point scale, but there is a special Abbey variant of the scale. So the Dukes of Dice scale goes 1 through 6, 1 being bad, bad, very bad, 6 being good, really good, amazing. The Abbey scale goes a little bit differently. So let's pair it up here. So a 1 is typically awful, and that's for you a no.
So first of all, the Abbey scale is, the question is, Alex asks, do you want to play this game? And this is my response to that question.
Yes.
1, no.
2, 3,
sure.
4,
Yeah.
5.
No,
I think you skipped one. Yeah, you did.
3 is okay.
There we go.
4 is sure. 5 is yeah. 6 is heck yeah.
What's this one get?
Probably a 4. I'd play this if you were like, this kind of game feels like to me like we're in an airport somewhere and we've got 20 minutes to kill and you're feeling fidgety and you want to do something. And yeah, it doesn't take that much brain power, mental energy, not a huge time commitment.
Not exhausting. Still feels like there's a little competitive edge to it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Ultimately, for me, this one's just okay. It's a 3. I don't feel the need to have it. There are other in this line that Button Shy has done that I'd rather have that fill that exact same kind of need. I think we'll talk about what that one would be a little bit down the line. But for me, it's just okay. It has an interesting core mechanic. It's by no means broken. It's enjoyable enough. It's just not super satisfying. I'm going to add one more thing for you to throw in. I did not tell you about this ahead of time. If this game were a TV show, what TV show would it be?
What? This game would be that American Barbecue one we just watched.
Okay, so which we've watched a couple. Are you talking about
American Barbecue Showdown, the Great British Baking Show in barbecue format?
Yes, that one.
Because it's not as good as the Great British Baking Show, but it's still like similar, sort of like it's a little competitive, but also it's like it's fun.
Okay,
it's nice.
All right. Next up, pick a number 1 to 6.
6.
Bottom of the stack, she goes. Oh, we're starting off negative with this one. Next up is Supertall. And you were mentioning that your impression of these Button Shy games was, hey, the rules aren't going to be too bad, right? Like, it couldn't be too long of a teach. It couldn't be too much of this. And then we broke this one out. So I'm not going to go through a full rules explanation of this because this one left such an iffy taste in both of our mouths.
Not good. Don't get this game.
Yeah. This might be the short section of this this whole deal. Basically, you have 18 plan cards, and on these plan cards, they have abilities. So they're multi-use cards. You can use them for their top ability. If they are the topmost in a building, they have certain scoring conditions, which will work in different ways. For example, I believe it's the business buildings will get you 1 point per business and 3 points per entertainment in that same tower, but you'll lose points for any adjacent trees. And effectively, you'll have a certain number of building sites that you're working off of that are towers. Game's called Supertall. You're building these super tall towers, in theory. And again, these cards have multi-uses. You can use them to kind of dig through the other deck. You can use them to build onto your tower. You can use them to build onto your opponent's tower and mess them up. There is one type of tower in the center of the board, which ultimately doesn't score if that's the one that's left at the end of the game. That's the one type of tower that will not score for people, so you could potentially negate a bunch of your opponent's points. I don't know if it's worth going any deeper into this one, though. I mean, basically your turn is, if I'm recalling, you'll draw a card, reveal it, and then take one of the actions. There are 3 basically different actions that include, again, putting it into City Hall, using it for its ability, or adding it to a tower and hopefully getting points off of it. You did not care for this one.
No.
Why not?
It's way too complicated for what it is. And also, it's just like not good. It's not fun. There wasn't any sort of like fun strategicness happening until the very end. Like it wasn't until we were fighting over what's the last card that's going to be left to negate points that it became any sort of interesting competition. The rest of the time you're just sort of like, meh, 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 meh. Yeah, did not like it.
I think there's probably more depth to this game than we're realizing. But again, it's tough. Because if you're button shy, right, you want a variety of these games. You want games that are small pocket size and potentially really hard and deep and interesting.
Well, sure. This does, like, none of these games have some sort of, like, huge barrier to entry in the market. Like, if Button Shy has their own card printing press, like, they can make all of this in-house, no problem at all. Like, all they have to do is get artwork and have, like, the game only needs to be half decent, and they only need to sell some of them to try and make money back. Like, I don't think it hurts them at all as a business to have a ton of games available. Like, just like this, like, yeah, all right, we'll play it. Someone had it, they loaned it to us, like, we're going to play it. Why not? Like, if you were on their website and they had some sort of, like, buy two, get one free, and you were like, maybe I'll try this one. I don't know. Like, I don't think it hurts their library of having this game available. I'm sure there are people out there who would like it. I don't feel bad about having played a game of this that I don't like, because it doesn't take a ton of time.
No. I will note that, by the way, we're not alone with this. BJ from Board Game Gumbo on the Dukes of Dice Guild referenced this game, and by Nat Levin. I think I might have said Matt Levin the first time. It might be Levon. I apologize, Nat. My mistake. He says he had tried 2 of these games. He tried Tussie Mussy, thought it was a great game, really enjoyed it. And then he said the other one he tried was Supertall, and mentioned the designer who had designed one of his favorite games, New Bedford, but he said, unfortunately, this one didn't click with my game group. I need to break it out again and try it with some other people. Might have been the night or the group. Might have also been the game. It's highly possible with this one that there's some levels of depth to this, but it did feel like there were a lot of wasted turns in the early going, where it was just draw a card, put it somewhere, draw a card, put it somewhere. And there's probably some more depth there. A game like Matainai is one where if you didn't go in knowing how to play it, that game could probably fall really flat, and often does for people because you don't know the hidden depth that lurks there. I'm going to give Nat the benefit of the doubt and say that it's probably there, but on first impression, it was convoluted. It wasn't interesting again until kind of later in the game as you played, and by that point, the game was so close to being over, didn't feel like you'd made meaningful decisions that set things up. It was just sort of doing whatever was best in the moment. It was just kind of okay. Going through other pieces, art-wise, do you recall liking the look of the game, caring about the look of it?
It looks very kind of 90s. I mean, the art is self-explanatory. Like, there isn't anything like you pick up a card and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to do with this. Like, it tells you what your options are, but it's not interesting or cool. It looks very sort of Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, it's kind of, I could see what you're saying with that. Kind of rounded fonts. It's very functional, right? It spells out exactly what you need to know for every card, for every ability. It's clean enough graphic design wise to play it.
Oh, completely.
But it's
not interesting.
It's not interesting or compelling. So, and then theme. Did you feel like you were building super tall building?
Yes. I just really felt like a contractor, and contractors hate their jobs, and so I also hated their job.
That's a very broad generalization about contractors.
I don't know. Have you ever worked with a contractor? Generally, they seem like they hate their job. But maybe that's just contractors working with my father. So
maybe that's your dad, though.
No, that's 100% my dad. And I'm just unfortunate to see the contractor side of things, and they seem to be hating their job. No, I don't know.
If you're a contractor who listens to the Dukes of Dice, write in and let us know if you hate your job. Abby thinks you do, but it could just be that her dad's a jerk.
I mean,
her dad's, by the way, to be clear, your dad's not a jerk.
No, my dad is particular. And when you're building a house or remodeling a house, you should be particular. It turns out contractors, not into particulars. So.
Man, another sweeping generalization.
It's fine. I can be like, nerds, board game nerds. Like, I promise you, not everyone who listens to your show, like, identifies as a nerd. Like,
sure.
There's someone here who's like, no, man, I played sports, and I just happen to like playing board games now as an adult. That's cool. But I'm going to make a sweeping generalization that's like, hello, nerds. It's fine.
It's fair.
There's no problem with that.
If this game, Supertall, were a TV show, what TV show would it be?
An animated show that I don't like, probably. Like Family Guy. What's that worst one? American
Dad?
Yeah, it's like Family Guy, but not. Like worse.
I actually enjoyed that one but I like animated shows more than you do.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Good morning, USA. All right, I'm not gonna go any further down that road.
That means nothing to me. I've never seen
Yeah, it's fine.
I
It's
can
the
just
intro. It's the intro
tell
song
you
to the
that
show.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. All right, that's enough on Supertall. It's out of the way. We got that one out of the way. Sorry. Scores wise, what score does that get from you?
No.
It's a 1. Okay.
Yeah, I would not. I would be like, seriously, pick a different game. Like, there's no way I would be like, all right, yeah, I'll give this one a try again.
It doesn't fall that like 1 for me on my version of the scale, which is not. They're not parallel. They sort of are in alignment.
Mine
but
is
not
answering a question, which is, would you want to play this game right now?
And the dividing
no.
the dividing line on the Duke scale, which rarely comes into play between a 1 and a 2. 1 is straight up broken. This game is like it should not have been made. And 2 is I can see the merit. I can see what they were going for. I can see why some people would enjoy this, but I'm not going to play it again. And it's very much firmly in a 2 for me. It's firmly in a 2 category.
Your scale's just nicer than my scale.
It could be.
You're like, well, we appreciate the effort. You're like that high school teacher that gives the kids that are bad at class like extra credit, and then the smart kids get mad because they're like, seriously, he did nothing. And she's like, well, I can tell that he tried, so he gets a D+.
The scale is a bell curve. So it kind of clumps up at 3s and 4s, and that's where most of them are. And then you get more 5s than 2s. So it's a little bit biased towards the positive side. 6s are more common than 1s. 1s are really rare. But yeah, you could be right.
How many 1s have you given on this show?
Maybe 3 or 4 all time. I don't know. Someone can correct me on that, but somewhere in that range. And way more 6s.
I think you guys aren't discerning enough as board game reviewers.
Whoa. Wow.
If it falls in a bell curve, what sort of helpfulness are you providing to board game players? If you're just like, it's probably a 3 or a 4. Like, but great, I definitely know which game to get now.
We have talked about this. Like, it's part of why we moved away from a 10-point scale was because so many things clumped in these, like, what's the difference really between a 7 and a 7.5? Like, there wasn't a significant distinction there, and they were all kind of falling. And so we tried to make it a more practical version. And the truth is, a 1 is more like burn it in a fire, and 2 is more, I don't want to play this again. And it's more of an I don't want to play this again than a burn in a fire for me.
It's not going to be a very big fire, so.
No, it would not. Not with any of these, really. Okay, we're down to 5 games. 2 down, 5 to go.
3.
Number 3. Okay, not that one, not that one. Oh, this is actually the first of these 7 that we played together. Circle the Wagons. Circle the Wagons.
Yeehaw!
Designed by Steve Aramini, Danny Devine, and Paul Kluka.
I thought you were about to say Danny DeVito. And I was like, wow, Danny DeVito got into board game?
No, I know Danny because
Are these considered board games? There is no board.
Card games, I would say. It's in the hobby game space, but they're card games. These are all pure card games, to be clear. Some of them require additional components, but absolutely none of them are really on a board. No. So this is a 2-player game. And what you do in this one is you set out 3 cards which have unique scoring objectives, and then you play the rest of the cards on the other side of the board. And what you're going to be doing in a circle of wagons around. These cards have different types of things on them. So they might have a pickaxe or a gun or a steer or a bottle or a wagon. And those things will mean different things depending on the scoring conditions. A wagon can be completely meaningful in one kind of game and completely meaningless in another. It's just all dependent on what are the 3 cards that you're playing with as far as score. So for instance, just pick one at random. This one's the hero, the herd. Wow. Oof. Which will make sense in a second here. 2 points per cow in your largest cow group. Hence why it's not the hero, it's the herd. Anyway. But you could also have another one, which is, well, this is another cow-related one. Happy cows. 2 points per cow that is not adjacent to or on a snow territory. What you're trying to do is on your turn, you basically have the option of grabbing a card, grabbing the card that's up next in line, or skipping as many down the line as you want and grabbing that next card instead. But if you do, any cards that you didn't pick go to the other player. So you could go as far down the line as you want, but your opponent is going to get a bunch of cards to work with and potentially more material to score points with. Because in addition to those scoring cards in the center, you are also going to get points for clumps of these different types of territories. So if you have a bunch of snowy mountains all kind of in one big clump, that can score you a bunch of points. You're going to score basically your largest area of each type, if I'm remembering correctly, in addition to the scoring in the center of the table.
Yes.
But it's an interesting choice, right? It's either I'm picking that card in front of me, the next one, or the one further down. And there's reasons why you might skip at times. There's reasons why you might go to the next one. There's this sort of weird tug of war. You're going for different goals. Let's get into it. So art-wise, what did you think about this one, Circle the Wagons?
I mean, it's all very distinct and clear as to what it is, but like, it's fine. It's a little bit beige. Like, even the things that are colorful or sort of like muted colored tones. All of the like iconography is like shades of brown. The little wallet thing is brown. Like, it's just sort of beige.
It has that kind of westerny feel, that little bit of a faded cowboy kind of, which, I mean, it's a Wild West kind of themed game.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, that is the theme. I believe they did have color in the Wild West.
You don't know that for a fact. You weren't there.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't just faded brown everything, but perhaps I'm wrong.
It's the dusty western desert that kind of muted all the tones. You've been to New Mexico. There was no color in New Mexico.
Yeah, none whatsoever. Just all beige all the time.
So in terms of, I by the way, I think the art is just fine. The different territories could have all kind of muddled together, but they're pretty clear and distinct. And what I do like is that they have different patterns. So for colorblind players, I think there might be some difficulty here, but there's at least an attempt to make it playable if you have a hard time distinguishing between the colors. Game is incredibly functional in that way. We've had to play just about all of these. So working from home, our typical game table is our dining room table. And that has been now my desk. It's been my desk for a number of months.
And Alex is that guy at the office who just has papers scattered all over his desk. And you're like, excuse me, sir, can you find anything? And there's just like a lunch carton from 3 days ago and 7 glasses of water and all of the mail for the whole week. And it just like, it looks like, I haven't seen the show. I've just seen the meme. It's the Always Sunny where he's like all the papers and the yarn and he's like, freaking out like he's connected everything. Like it looks like you're in the middle of solving a case.
I do have a couple of notebooks here. I have jury duty, like a random jury duty envelope.
You have 2 computers. Like, it's just, there's always a lot happening on the table.
Yeah.
And for my own personal sanity, I just have to accept that and move on and not try to tackle that problem.
Yeah, it'd be a tough one to tackle because I live so much in this space these days.
Yeah.
But more to the point that this on the little coffee table that we've been using to kind of game, it takes up a good chunk of the table. Yep. Like it's just about eclipsed the whole thing. So gameplay wise, did you enjoy this one?
Yes.
Why?
It's fun.
Why is it fun?
Oh, that's what you want me to talk about?
Yes.
Jeez. Yeah, no, good game. It was fun because you have to like the sort of the picking the pieces has this sort of patchwork element to it where you're like, okay, if I pick this one, what does that leave you with? What goals are they trying to get towards? But unlike like say like patchwork where you have your own board, you're both working towards the same goals. So like if you want cows, they also want cows. If you want lots of winter, they also want lots of winter. So it's you trying to like pick and choose, but both going towards the same things. So that's kind of a fun element to work around and strategize with.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, that core decision is super simple, super elegant, really basic, right? Do I take this card or do I take a card further down? There's nothing to it other than that. You're not making any other decision, but there's so much depth in that decision, right? If I take this card, where am I placing it in my board? Am I denying you enough points? Am I giving myself enough points? Am I building enough territories? Am I working towards this goal? Because there are some of these goals that are, there was one, I think, mining, it was in the game that you beat me, it was a mining boomtown kind of goal.
Yep.
Where you need to have a certain number of picks, and if you had all of them, congrats, you get a bunch of points. If you had none of them, congrats, you get a bunch of points. And if you have just a few of them, you get no points.
Yeah, it was like boom or bust.
Right.
But if you were like had 4, they were like, yeah, we don't care, and you get 0 points.
And there's an elegance to it, right? You start with a circle, and then you kind of tick down the clock of that, and that's the game. Like that's the clock of the game. It worked really well. Mm-hmm. It worked really well. Again, it's thinky because you have that decision of where does this card go? How does it match up? How does it extend my territories? But you also have this element of denial and trying to map out what's going to be best. And yet it still doesn't, you don't get bogged down in AP. You don't get bogged down in these decisions for too long, just long enough to feel the crunchiness of it. And the variability that comes with those different scoring conditions and those scoring cards. Each game of this feels a little bit different because you're going for different things and those goals play off of each other in really interesting ways.
Yep.
So no, this was a little gem for sure. There's a reason this one has had a number of expansions put out for it. It's kind of one of the ones that's talked about with button shy games a lot. This is a stellar little game. Theme wise, did you feel like you were a cowboy in the Old West?
Yep. I got out my cowboy boots. I was like, wait, I can't play this game barefoot. I had to put on a flannel. I put dust all in our house. No, I don't. I'm
skipping this question. It's not a dumb question, but I am skipping it going forward.
The theme was fine because it wasn't trains and it wasn't outer space and it wasn't robots. Like, sure.
There's a lot of Wild West games, though.
Not that I've played.
Okay, that's fair.
We have like 2, I think.
Yeah, we have Colt Express down on the very bottom of the shelf, and then I'm looking, and I don't know if I have another one offhand. Yeah, there are more out there for sure.
See, it's just not a theme that I've been exposed to on the regular.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
It's not one.
I mean, it's a game that like any theme would have worked for it.
Sure. What would you give this one on the Abbey scale?
Probably a 6.
It's a heck yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heck yeah for you.
It doesn't take a ton of time, but it's fun to play. It's thinky. It's also one where it was like you beat me at first, and it was very easy to be like, yeah, let's play again. Like, okay, like I'm understanding it better. I also didn't feel like you like blew me out of the water. Yeah.
A surefire winning mechanic to include in any game for you to enjoy it, I found, is something where you can build your own little puzzle. Right? You like puzzles.
Yeah, it's like me versus myself.
Right.
It's like, yes, you technically beat me, but I achieved the goal I was trying to get to, or I built this really cool thing. That's like, that feels satisfactory to me. And
you're building your own little kingdom in this. I don't know. I'm certainly it's a high 5. I don't think it quite gets to 6. I don't think this is like top 10 territory. High 5. Yeah, I make that joke with Sean all the time. I don't know if he's actually high-fiving like we used to in person, but it's been, distance and time take their tolls. Anyway, it's certainly a high 5. This is a strong recommendation, and there's a lot of other materials for it, expansions, different things. Haven't played with any of those. Just really the base game alone, though. If it didn't take up so much space, it would be the perfect travel game, the absolute perfect travel game.
It would be good for a travel game in terms of like on a cruise. Yeah. Where it was like, okay, there's a game room we can go play in, and this is easy to pack because it doesn't take up a lot of space. But it's not a good travel game in terms of like, I want to play this on an airplane. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, on a tray table or something like that. It's not quite compact enough for that. That circle of cards is pretty beefy. Plus, you have to have your own little play area. I guess if you had an aisle, a whole row on a plane, you're flying Southwest. They've kept the middle seat open still. You could bring down that center tray table. And kind of maybe it might fit on there. I don't think so, though.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Anyway, that's Circle the Wagons. High 5 for me and a 6. Are we going 6? Is it a heck yeah?
Do it. You guys are too wishy-washy. We're going big or going home. It's full 6.
Full 6 from Abby. All right. We got 4 more of these left. 1 through 4.
1.
So this one's been sitting on the stack for a while. And this one is going to get even higher praise, I think, from me than this last game just got.
Yeah, you loved this game.
Oh, this game is brilliant. So this is Sprawlopolis, another one that is a star of the Button Shy catalog. In fact, as we speak, there is Agropolis on Kickstarter. It won't be. By the time this episode releases, you will be too late. Maybe you can grab it on pre-order or something, but they have come out with a whole other standalone version of this game called Agropolis that's doing really well on Kickstarter. More than 100,000 off of one of these size of games, which is not easy to do, by the way. This is designed by Steve Armini, Danny Devine, and Paul Kluka. And if I'm recalling correctly, oh, look, it's the same designers as Circle the Wagons. And in fact, this does share some of the same DNA as Circle the Wagons. It has that same core mechanic of there are 3 different unique scoring cards. All of these cards in Sprawlopolis are double-sided. One side has the different scoring conditions. The other side has another quadrant of city territories. Not with animals or anything weird like that, but with like different little road sections. You don't have quite as many diverse city types. In fact, you only have 4 different block types that you're working with in this game. You have park, resident, like blue, gray, and orange.
It's like park, industrial, residential, and like highways.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's highways in a lot of them.
There's road through all of them, but like the blue ones, I don't remember what the...
Commercial and industrial. It's some designation like that.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. At the start of the game, you are going to flip up those 3 unique scoring cards, much like in Circle the Wagons. But unlike Circle the Wagons, you are working together in this game. This is a game that is full cooperative. And how it's going to work is there are 2 cards that you'll have in hand, and you'll draw one and add it to it. And then you're going to pick 1 card from your hand and add it to your city. Simple as that. You're going to be looking to connect roads because at the end of the game, road maintenance costs money, so you're going to lose 1 point for every different kind of road you have. You're going to get points for blobs of areas, right? You want to, much like in Circle the Wagons, you want to have them all be connected if you can possibly do it. Hard to do. But then the scoring conditions on the cards can get really funky really fast. So again, flipping over a random one, we have morning commute. Morning commute. 2 points for every road that passes through both a residential block and a commercial block. So can get some nice points that way if you have connected roads going through those sections. And a lot of these goals are road-oriented goals. You could get, let's take a look at this one, park hopping. 3 points per road that begins at one park and ends in another. But you could get one called the burbs. 1 point for every park block adjacent to your largest group of residential blocks, but -2 points for an industrial block adjacent to your largest group of residential blocks. So if you have a big old neighborhood built somewhere in your city, you want to make sure the factories are far away from it. What's cool about these is the cards themselves dictate points, dictate your winning condition. Basically, you're going to add up the 3 goals, and that is the score you need to hit to win the game. So the difficulty scales based on how difficult the goals are. You're going to take turns building these. So on your turn, right, you're going to have those 3 cards in hand. I'm going to pick one, play it. Once I've put it on the table, it's out there. You can kind of discuss position, but the play is the play. And then you can pass the cards. You pass the 2 cards that you didn't pick to your teammate, who then draws another card to add to the mix, and you go from there. I think there are rules for larger player counts. We only played at 2. You could play it at 1 just fine, and it would work about the same way. You always have a little preview of what card's coming next, so you have a sense of, hey, this bendy kind of road is coming up. We might need to use this. That's the game in a nutshell. Let's talk art first. Did you like the look of this game?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's not special.
No.
But do you like it better than Circle the Wagons as far as art? It's certainly less muted than that.
Yeah, it reminds me of, that like that carpet that like it seems like every kid had that was just like roads in towns. It's sort of like the busy world of Richard Scarry and a carpet. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's bold, primary colors, very easy to distinguish.
Yeah, you're not going to mix up any of these different areas. The roads are easy to see kind of where they are and where they're going. Yeah, it all kind of lines up just fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything over the top special, but by no means bad and doesn't get in the way, and I think hard to complain about it. And it looks a little nice with its wallet pocket with a little road going across the front of it. Gameplay wise, did you enjoy this game?
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I thought you were about to be like, did you feel like you were
No, I'm not asking
an
that,
architect designing a city?
I've already said I'm not asking that question.
What would the question be? What would that question be for this game?
It's the same question. Did you feel like you were a city planner? I mean, that's basically what you are.
That's what a city planner does? If they were like, we can only have one road. We must have the one road connect all the way through the city.
No, but basically it's simulating, right? Like a neighborhood group complains that like they're trying to build a factory nearby and they're going to get annoyed and maybe, I don't know, yell a lot at city council. Like there's some element of theme there.
Okay. Did I like the game? Yes, I did like the game. I really like cooperative games. Like that's something I enjoy because you like to play board games and I like to do things with you, and getting to play a cooperative game is like doing a thing completely together. So I thoroughly enjoy cooperative games. We played this one 2 or 3 times in a row. It's fast. It's fun. It is very puzzly based on whatever goals you happen to be trying to work towards. One of the things that you did was you got too invested in one goal and didn't pay attention to the other goals.
Yep.
So it is fun to be like, try and see where you should go after. And if you realize it too late, good luck.
You're trying to be efficient, right? You're trying to lay it out in such a way that you have the fewest roads possible, or you're trying to work on one big project, like a giant loop that goes around the city, which we tried to in one of those games and failed miserably because, again, I got too fixated on this goal that said have as many commercial blocks in one row or column as you can and get points for that. Focused way too hard on that and not on the giant loop we were trying to build. Where we were more successful was that game where it was don't have parks on the edge of your map.
Yep.
Have parks inside your city. And that was one that we focused on and we succeeded. And I think we hit the score for this dead on.
Yep.
I mean, we just made it. And it's a difficult game, right? If you're not communicating well, if you're not thinking it through, and you are allowed to mostly openly communicate. You can talk about, hey, I have this and it's doing that, and then this is, but you can't show the card to your teammate. You can't talk it out in a way that's going to give away what everything is. So there's elements. It's not a cooperative game where it feels like there can be an alpha gamer who just kind of bulldozes over the other player and says, "Oh, you're building this card and you're building it here for this reason." There's so much that's kind of left to you in seeing those cards in hand that it avoids that problem. It's super elegant. The games feel different every time. And honestly, the same set of goals would feel different playing it a couple of times in a row because you might model how you built the city a little bit differently based on timing of cards. Really interesting. Combinations are endless. It does what Circle the Wagons does, but kind of moves that into that more cooperative space. It does it in such a satisfying way. Man, this game's good. It's really good.
It is good.
I enjoyed the efficiencies you're trying to find, and it's so satisfying when you find something that connects a road and also saves us from getting negative points here, and also accomplishes this goal by putting more big clumps of park together so that we have a giant park to score off of. There's a lot going on in it, a lot to love, and there's going to be no hesitancy with this one. This is a straight 6. Like, this is a fantastic game.
Yeah. As soon as we finished playing it, you were like, that is so good. That was a good game. Like, you liked that game like you'd had the best meal of your life, where you just couldn't even do anything else for a little bit because you were just thinking about that game. Did you back the other game?
I did, in fact, go on and with Agropolis, I have backed Agropolis as well, and backed at a level where I will get Sprawlopolis and all the other goodies that come with Sprawlopolis, which is a shame. I might ask Kyle if I can keep this one for a little bit until the other one arrives. We'll see if he's down with that. I don't know. But that of all of the games, not to spoil any of the other reviews, but this was my favorite. This is my favorite button shy game out of the 8 we've played now, easily.
Easily.
I don't know about easily. Circle the Wagons is close.
Yeah, Circle the Wagons was really good.
And we have some other ones.
There were some other ones that we played that were good.
We have some contenders coming up. We're not done yet. Is this one a 6 for you? Did you like it less than Circle the
I would
Wagons?
put this one out of 5. I like Circle the Wagons better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This one, Circle the Wagons is easier to achieve goals and less difficult to be punished by unachieved goals. This game is a lot more punishing on unachieved things. And I don't like that. I don't like negative points at the end, like mass amounts of negative points.
Yeah, and there's a good chance you'll have mass amount of negative points and you're battling against a really tight number that you're trying to hit.
I mean, and even if you're doing it well, you still get negative points. It's like for roads and stuff like that, So that's just less fun for me.
I get that. Interesting.
But it's still a great game. Still give it a 5. It was still fun to play. It's just not a 6.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's Sprawlopolis. High praise for that one from me, for sure. And Abby likes it pretty well, too. We got 3 left. We're 4 down, 3 to go. 1, 2, or 3. What door do you want?
3.
Number
You
3.
really missed a chance to do game theory right there to be like, no, okay, now I've
like, pick
eliminated this. Now keep 3. We've eliminated.
Do you wanna
door
switch to
1.
this
Do you
other
wanna
one?
Switch to 2.
If Supertall were still in the mix and it was like Supertall, Sprawlopolis, and Potions class or something like that, maybe that would be the one. Like try and find Sprawlopolis or try and find Circle. But no, not necessary. All three of these remaining games, I will say, not to spoil too much, there's not a bad one in the bunch, in my mind.
I mean, Supertall was clearly the bad one of the bunch.
Wow.
I gave it a 1.
You
I
did.
don't like.
No, it's fair.
I think my opinion is pretty well known.
Okay. Stew by Jason Glover is the next one we'll talk about. By the way, I just made a really good stew the other day.
Oh, you made
Just
a
gonna
beef
say.
stew. It was really good.
Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a game where you are making we could. I don't feel inclined
Dukes
to.
of Spice. So, what you're going to do first is saute the onions. Okay.
Brown the beef. I'll do it in one big Dutch oven. Then you're going to throw in the carrots and a little tomato paste. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. In stew, you are trying to make a stew or sabotage a stew, depending on the round and the condition of it.
Or if your name is Alex Goldsmith.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll get there. Basically, you're going to draw a card and then decide whether you're going to throw it in the stew or use it to basically throw at one of the random critters or people that are there trying to mess with your stew. So there's a boar, a fox, a rabbit, a raccoon, a gopher, and a vagabond.
If they're trying to mess with your stew, think they're trying to eat your stew.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, that's my stew. Like, they can't eat that. Anyway.
I mean, they do. That's the whole premise.
That is the whole premise. So basically I might look at a card, and the card might be a potato, and I could say I want this potato in the stew, or I could give the potato to the gopher / throw the potato at the gopher, depending on your interpretation of the game. And then the gopher no longer takes away negative points from the stew, effectively. Those different critters will do things like the gopher eats 1 leek before the stew is scored. The raccoon eats 1 potato before the stew is scored. The vagabond costs you -3 points if the chicken is in the stew, but you get 3 points if the chicken is not in the stew for some reason. It's explained in the rule book. I don't want to. No reason to get into it. There are cards. There's the chicken. 1 chicken. It's worth 5 points. Pretty good. There are potatoes, which get you more depending on how many potatoes are in there. So 1 potato is just 1 point to the stew. But if you have 4 potatoes, people love a good cream of potato stew. So if you have 4 potatoes, it's 16 points in the stew, which I got to say is good because as you go, at any point, a player can call stew. And when they call stew, you're going to check the stew and see if it has enough points. Basically, you're going to flip it over. You're going to evaluate which animals pulled stuff out of the stew, and then you're going to add up the remaining points. If the stew is 12 or more points, congrats. You score the stew, you get 2 points for that. If the stew is less than 12 points, though, all other players, because this can play with more than 2, but in our case, the other player gets a point. What's interesting about this one is, again, there are things that are not good to have in a stew. For instance, I don't know, a stone. Like you put a stone in a stew, that's not going to make a good stew. You get -3 points for that. And there's a little bit of a cat and mousey kind of game where you're sort of drawing cards and making a decision usually pretty early on in a round. Am I going to go for like this stew being really tasty and delicious, or am I going to sabotage this stew? Am I going to throw in rocks and give the chicken to a gopher and all sorts of other little wrinkles like that? Art-wise, what did you think about this game? So you got the animal drawings, and then you have the drawings of, I don't know, leeks. Any thoughts on art and look of the game?
The art was fine. It was good.
It's got a spooky vagabond looking over a stew with some mushrooms and some carrots.
Like rusticy, very clear indicators of what everything is. Yeah.
Stylistically, I think I like this one of the best of the game. I think
it looks great.
It looks really cool. It is a little creepy, but creepy in a cool way, if that makes any sense. Anyway. All right, gameplay-wise, did you dig this game?
You beat me every time we played this game.
I did.
And the first time you put the rock in stew.
Oh, you thought that was you were really upset with that.
I assumed that you wouldn't put a rock in the stew. Why would you put a rock in the stew? Like, I don't understand. What? This is the man who feeds me dinner every night. Like, I don't cook for myself. He cooks. And now he's just cool with putting rocks in the food? Like,
if it means I can win,
clearly.
I'm going to throw a rock in a stew.
I learned something about our marriage the first time we played. No, I did not think of of sabotaging the stew as a strategy. And I am bad at push your luck style games. And I am bad at this game. But it's fun.
It is fun. And this, you mentioned kind of potions class being that one that, like, you pull it out, it's super casual, it's kind of fun and a little bit funny, and you're going toe to toe and head to head with someone. This is one that, because it takes up such little space, right? You could absolutely play this while traveling.
Yeah, for sure.
You could absolutely play this one with multiple people while traveling, and it would be just fine. It's just the deck and then the various critters and then the spot for the stew. It doesn't take up a ton of space. But there's some interesting little depth here, and there's some fun little moments of, again, like, hey, I slipped a stone into the stew. Or you can set up little combos. There's one of the animals eats garlic. And garlic, if you have a little bit in the stew, is great. Everyone likes a little bit of garlic in a stew. But you put too much in it, it's much lower point total. It's 1 point if both garlic are in the stew, 6 points if only one is. Well, you can try and set it up in such a way where say 2 garlic are in the stew, and the critter that's eating them is still out there. But as soon as that critter gets covered, that stew is of a lower value, and you're not going to call stew because you don't want to call it too early. But of course, you only have partial information you're operating off of. Super simple mechanic, streamlined, easy to play, but a lot of good moments. Like a lot of these fun little, like, again, you getting annoyed at me slipping stones in the stew. The chicken somehow not ending up in there. Stew's ending up just full of potatoes and somehow being amazing. Like, I'm not going to ask you whether you felt the game was thematic, like you were actually cooking a stew.
Absolutely not, because I don't put rocks in my stew.
But I will say, in terms of a theme being delightful, this theme was the most delightful to me.
Very delightful. It was a great theme. Cooking, like, that's such a fun theme. The artwork is super cute, like little cartoon drawings of leeks and garlic. And even the little animals are super cute, like very woodsy. Yeah, adorable.
But also the image of, like, I threw a chicken at the gopher just to get it to go away, just like, and you can imagine the gopher being like, ooh, tasty chicken, or the gopher being like, the chicken's attacking me, like whatever it is that causes this animal to run away. There's just that little bit of imagination that creeps in that I tend to like in games.
Do gophers eat chicken?
Do gophers eat chicken? I don't know. I've never fed a gopher in my life.
I don't think I've ever seen a gopher in my life.
I'm sure you've seen a gopher.
Where would I see a gopher?
Maybe at the zoo?
They have gophers at the zoo?
They might. At the St. Louis Zoo? It's possible.
I don't recall ever seeing a gopher.
All right. Would you want to see a gopher? Should we make that our mission? Do we need to go see Punxsutawney Phil?
Is he a gopher?
He's a groundhog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Groundhog. It's not Gopher's Day. Are groundhogs and gophers the same thing? Is it like an interchangeable thing?
I'm going to be honest, and this is going to make me sound dumb. I have no idea.
Well, clearly I don't, because I don't even know if I've seen a gopher before. So, like, we're on the same page.
If you've seen a gopher, please contact the Dukes of Dice on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008.
Gopher Goldsmith.
There is one small negative I found with this game, which is...
When you put rocks in the stew?
No, that one's pretty cool. That's a lot of fun. It's as you get lower down in the deck, and there's sort of this weird forced choice of, I guess I have to call stew, or you get a point, or you might get 2 or whatever else. Like, I might as well. You're going to get a point either way. That doesn't feel like a fun decision. It kind of feels like a weird forced decision that you might know the stew is no good, but have to call it anyway. It's not great, but I don't know what you would do to avoid it. So, hard to avoid. It is what it is, but just something I noticed as a thing. So, I would also say that do you think this would be fun with 3 or 4, or do you think this is best at 2, if you had to guess?
I think it'd be fun at 3 or 4. It'd be harder at 3 or 4.
Much harder. Much more goofy, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It was goofy enough at 2. I could see it being really goofy at 3 or 4. Well, anyway, that's Stu. Review your score of Stu. Gets a?
4.
So that'd be a yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, it's not a yeah, it's a sure.
Sure.
Your scale's weird. Okay.
It's
Hey,
a
Abby,
4.
do you want to play Stew?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
Like,
Oh, so it's a 4.5.
it's the Midwestern, yeah.
Okay. It also gets. I think I would say it gets a high 4 from me because I hedge my bets a little bit. It's not. I wouldn't call it great. Like it's really good and it does a lot with the cards. The art's delightful. The theme is fun. But I'm not over the top. Like, oh yeah, I really thought that was great. It's a really good, but it's not a great for me.
Yeah, I like it. Feels like one where it's like, hey, you want to have a beer and play a quick game? Great fit for that. It's fun. It's enjoyable. Causes some laughs. Super cute. But actual game wise, it's not super interesting decision making wise.
No, I would agree with that.
The same decision you're making over and over. But yeah, good game.
All right, we got 2 left. 1 or 2?
Or.
Did you say 4?
I said or.
Or?
I said 1 or 2.
You can't pick or. You're being annoying.
I'm always annoying. 1.
That's not true. You want 1? Okay. This one is Kintsugi, designed by Mark McGee and Daniel Solis.
I thought you were going to say Mark McGrath.
No,
We always listen to Mark McGrath's show on the 90s on 9 on Sirius XM.
It's because, like, when I'm driving, I tend to listen. I used to listen to podcasts when I had to commute somewhere, but during COVID, I'm working, but I don't have to commute anywhere. And the good default, because you don't necessarily like hair metal and you don't want to listen to sports talk, because I have a hockey channel as one of my presets, the good happy medium is 90s on 9. So, yeah, Mark McGrath always happens to be on with his random show. And
I have no problem. Mark McGrath picks great music. He's just a weird host, and he always seems to pick a theme.
yes.
But the theme has nothing to do with the music. He just makes the music fit the theme. But he always says, Mark McGrath here from the band Sugar Ray, as if like, yeah, dog, it's the 90s channel. Like, we know. And also, you host this every weekend, and then they replay it. Like,
Sure. Yeah, they get their money's worth out of Mark.
truly.
Yeah.
Whatever he's getting paid, it's probably not enough.
Well, anyway, the designer is Mark McGee, not Mark McGrath.
Sorry, Mark McGee.
Yeah.
I hope maybe you two one day will get your own Sirius XM show.
Probably won't be on the 90s channel. Might be. You never know. Anyway, Kintsugi, 2-player game, and it is referring to the ancient Japanese art form of repairing broken pottery using gold lacquer. Lacquer. Not liqueur.
Not liqueur.
No, lacquer. Wow.
Lick the pasta.
This is-
Lick the plate.
This is when I was on TV news, and sometimes a word would pop up, and you know the word, but you can't in that moment read it really well. So I would say, like, pecan is how I would say pecan pie. But I definitely at one point on the news said pecan pie.
I mean, that's how they say it in the South.
I know that, but I wasn't in the South, and I'm not Southern.
I mean,
really.
but do they make pecan pie in New Mexico?
Sure they do.
Really?
Yeah, why not?
Feels weird.
Okay.
I mean, I thought you'd make like chili pie.
You can have some forms of of chili pie, but I don't think it's the most popular, certainly dessert-wise.
I wouldn't think pie would be on the list of desserts in New Mexico.
Oh, there's some. I think you could probably find some good pies. Not that
I know you can because before our wedding, your dad texted us to be like, what kind of pies do people like? And then they brought pies as desserts to have. So, like, obviously, I know, like, there's pies, but I just, like, if you think New Mexico, I don't think pies.
It's not the Midwest, and it's certainly not the most common thing you would think of. That's accurate.
Certainly not a pecan pie.
Well, anyway, this isn't about that. This is about lacquer pottery.
Sorry, there's so many games. I'm losing my train of thought.
It's okay. We're almost done. We got 2 left. In this game, you are trying to score the most points by having the lowest score and by having the fewest different areas of your secret color. Basically, at the start of the game, you're going to be given a secret card: red, white, yellow, or blue. And that's your secret color that you're working on over the course of the game. The trick is you're trying to not make it obvious what color you're working on, right? If I have red, I don't want you to know it's red, because at the end of the game, you're going to have an opportunity to guess my color. And if you guess my color correctly, well, oops, you get to now subtract my score from your score. So there's a chance that could flip the outcome of the game if I make it too obvious what I'm up to. On your turn, you are going to be drawing a card, and then I don't remember if you have a hand or if you just draw one from the deck and play. But basically, you're going to be laying cards to a common pot that we're both working on together.
You just draw one from the deck and play it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're going to cover one section on a previously played card, at least one section. It cannot. There's other rules to it. Basically, you can't cover more than one section on one card, but it can overlap in other sections. Effectively, you're trying to kind of meld different things together into one area. You want your colors in as few clusters as possible because your score at the end of the game is the number of unique clusters of your kind of pottery, minus, if you guessed your opponent, the number of unique clusters they have. That's the game. There's nothing else to it. So, having played Kintsugi, art-wise, first of all, it's certainly the cleanest and one of the more elegant ones of this, right? It looks cool when you've built this on the table. Art is kind of a part of what you're building in this game.
Yeah. I don't think the colors look great together. Like the red's a little bit kind of bleh, and it's like the colors they picked don't feel like they go super well together, but I think it's probably like they're very clearly distinct colors. So that's probably why they went with it. But in terms of like the way they look together, not great. But it's cool. It's like, it's hard to describe, but the pieces aren't obvious shapes. Like they're all, of course, made with straight lines, but some are like very large, take up most of the card. Some it's just like this little tiny corner. Sometimes they're pretty evenly divided across the whole card. So you really don't know what you're going to get when you draw your card. You're really working with something different every time. So it's cool.
Yeah, there's an even box. It might be slightly off kilter and a little bit diagonal. It can get a little funky, and you're overlapping cards, so you're stacking as you're going. You're kind of adding more and more and more to this piece of pottery, and again, trying to kind of secretly group your things together and not make it super obvious. I will say the concept of this game, how it read, really a ton of fun, interesting. Love the concept of like, this is my secret thing I'm trying to do. There's an elegance towards building this thing out together while kind of trying to think of the way that's going to best maximize my score while not giving away my position. And all of that sounds very interesting. And the problem is, at no point in several games of this did either of us guess what the other person was doing wrong. Maybe we were just not doing a good job of masking things, but...
Yeah, it became pretty obvious, like, oh, he's blue. Like, I don't know how you could play this game and work towards your strategy of getting your fewest number of clumps while also making it not obvious that that's what you're trying to do.
And the truth of the matter is, it probably in most cases is best to just be super obvious, make as few clumps as possible. And if you have very few clumps, even if your opponent guesses what you're doing, it may not make a huge difference in the score.
Yeah.
But then again, if you do know what your opponent's doing, you can try and add more colors and mess things up and balloon their score. But it's hard to directly mess with someone that way while also building something that makes sense for you.
Yes. It's hard to directly mess with people in this game because the cards are only so big. Like there's only so much space you have to work with, and you still don't want to mess up your own game. So,
yeah. Did you feel like you were making ancient? No,
I felt like I was making pottery and then gilding it, all the cracks. No, completely not. It doesn't feel like pottery at all. At no point did I think pottery when I was building this game.
Oh, I get it with the description of the theme.
Sure, the description matches the cards. I totally understand where they're coming from. But you don't end up with like some sort of blob of cards on the table that looks like a piece of pottery.
No, it just looks like a funky pattern that hopefully for you is in as few clumps of your color as possible. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, ultimately for me, this one is, again, it's better on paper than it is in practice. I would play it again. I didn't dislike it, right? And it's interesting. What it's doing mechanically is interesting, but how it all comes together, the sum is less than its parts, if that makes any sense.
I would agree.
Interesting. What score do you give this?
Like a 3.
Okay. So now you've converted fully over to the Duke scale, it feels like.
No. It's one of those where it's like, if you asked me to play this game, I don't know if I would have like an answer.
Yeah. You'd be like, why? Like,
Exactly.
You have a bunch of others that...
It's just one of those to be like, okay, you sure? Like, why do you want to play this game? Like, it feels like a game that you would ask to play because you have some sort of ulterior motive in terms of like, oh, I'm play testing it for this because I want to try this other mechanic, or so-and-so wants me to review mechanics similar to this, or whatever it happened to be. It does not feel like a game that you would ask me to play because you wanted to play the game. So I don't feel like I have an answer in terms of that, because I don't think it's one we'll ever play again.
I think it's unlikely, and it's a shame because it has that puzzly nature to it, right? Again, it has a lot of things that you would really like and enjoy, but it just doesn't come together well enough. I don't know. So that's Kintsugi. We have one game left. One game. And this is the only game of the bunch here that actually requires other components that aren't included in the game. This game is Arcane Bakery Clash, designed by Robin Gibson. And this is a game where you are two wizard bakers going toe-to-toe in a kitchen battle, trying to, deplete their energy. There's some version of this that makes sense, but I mean, genuinely, you're trying to take your opponent's health from 10 to 0. If you get your opponent to 0 health, you win. Good job. This is a 2-player game. I will say, of the games we played, this one played the longest. It took the longest to play a single game of.
Yes.
I mentioned you need other components for this, and the rulebook suggests that you need up to 12 coins or trackers. This is a game when I read the rulebook, I wasn't sure if you would like this one or not. It had some fascinating elements to it. I'll talk about the rules first. So, on your turn, you have 2 actions you can do. You can either draw a recipe card into hand. You can put a recipe in the oven, basically take your card, put it face down on the table. You can peek into an oven, basically look at a previously played card. Memory is a very key part of this game, as I'll explain in a moment. You can turn up the heat on an oven, basically on the backs of these cards. There is a little oven tracker that goes from 0 to 7. When you first put something in the oven, it goes to 0. All of your ovens will automatically increase heat by 1, basically 1 minute in the oven at the end of your turn. So it'll go from 0 to 1, constantly increasing in temp. The last thing you can do is take a recipe out of the oven, flip the card over. Here's where things get really tricky. Because, as mentioned, the timing of what you have in an oven and when you need to pull it out is everything. So, for instance, Brownie Bash is one of the cards. If you pull it out of the oven when it's been in there for 3 minutes, great, you dealt 2 damage to an opponent. If you pull it out when it's been in there 4 minutes, you deal 5 damage to an opponent. That's huge if you can time that out well. The trick is, there are other things that your opponent can do to crank up the heat. You might forget which card you put in which oven, and again, per the rules of the game, unless you take an action to do it, you're not allowed to check. If you flip a card out that doesn't have a specific cooking temp, it was it was a 3 or 4, like the Brownie Bash, and you left it in there for 6 minutes. It's burnt to a crisp. You lose energy trying to salvage your beautiful dish. And if you leave a card in to where it goes all the way through the oven cycle, past 7, it melts in the oven, things go really haywire, and you lose 2 energy. There are other cards. They're not just things that you instantly do, right? You can do things to restore your energy. There's things that you can do where you damage your opponent and increase their temperature on all ovens, not just theirs, but yours too. You can do ones where you draw cards from people's hand. There's one where if you flip the card over, you get to flip a coin if you do it at the right time and potentially deal damage or not. Abby almost won the game that we played of this on that specific card. There's one called a Syrup Elemental, which comes into play with a certain amount of energy, and you can deal 1 damage per turn. It just automatically hurts your opponent. Super, super interesting game. It's a combination of memory and card play and this weird head-to-head thing. It's wholly unique. So, Abby, what did you think in terms of the look of this game? The art, the styling, some of those kinds of things?
Really cute. I like it. It kind of has like a strawberry shortcake, funky, like a punk strawberry shortcake kind of vibe to it. It's really cute. And the cards are pretty easy to read and understand. We used coins, like pennies, as our trackers, and kind of everything has a little curve to it that where the penny goes, it fits right in there. It's really easy to use. Yeah.
Really smart graphic design in that way, right? It does line up perfectly for a penny's curve. It sits where it needs to. Some of these cards you need to track energy on. You need to track a certain amount of time where the card's effect is in play. The only thing I didn't like about the look of this game are the characters that you play as. I think they just look dumb. They're just cartoony in a way that I didn't enjoy.
Didn't even pay attention to those cards because they just sort of sat off to the side and all you cared about was the energy tracker on them.
The rest of them are whimsical and fun and enjoyable. Popcorn Storm, the Syrup Elemental, like all of them look the part of this kind of fantastical baking experience. So all that being said, did you enjoy this game?
Yes.
Why did you enjoy this game?
It was also fun. Now, I liked this game. It was definitely thinky. There was a bit at the beginning of sort of like figuring out like how long do I let... Most of the cards have two options. A low temperature, which means not a lot of time, like a low time thing with some damage, or a high time thing with way more damage. So there's this like strategy of, do I let this cook for a little bit longer and give you more damage, or do I risk that it, like, I forget what number it's going on, or you crank up my ovens and it goes past it, or whatever else could happen. You like are deciding between those two things. So it has some interesting decision making.
Well, and you can play it really conservatively, right? I could put one card in an oven at a time, crank up the heat, manage it, but that's probably not going to be the most efficient use of things. And while you're doing that, someone who's a little bit more bold, maybe has a slightly better memory, might be putting out an elemental, getting more actions per turn, messing with your ovens, doing all sorts of other things that can screw with you. So it's that balancing act of, you can put 3 things in an oven if you want, but you'd better be dang sure which one's which. And you think you can remember it really easily, but I thought this would be no problem. I would never use the peak action. And I think I used it 2 or 3 times in the game we played.
Oh, I definitely used the peak action. Because I would be like, this is 4, right? And then I flip it over and it was like, okay, yeah, it's 4. And then my next turn I'd be like, wait, this is 4, right? Like, it was, you just seem to forget. I never trusted myself, but sometimes I took the risk.
And it was a tight game that we played. You got ahead early. And then I kind of bounced back. There's a vampiric cake, like a red vampiric cake that I sucked some energy off of. And then you had a coin flip to win the game, and it just didn't go your way. If it had gone your way, it was game over, and unfortunately, it didn't. I also overheated your ovens a couple of times, which was a lot of fun. This game packs a ton into it. It packs a ton of punch.
Yep.
I would say maybe a downside of the game that I noticed is some things that should seem obvious, like these things having energy.
Yes, those were a little bit confusing.
It was a little bit confusing. It's not, and I may have missed it. I don't think I did. It's not a big rule book, but it's not really clearly laid out on the rule book exactly how those things work or timing. You figure it out. It makes some degree of sense, but it was something that definitely got a little bit in the way, but not significantly in the way. I found this fascinating. Again, that combination of memory, that combination of cranking up ovens, that battle going back and forth and trying to time things out, being careful but not too careful, knowing that your opponent can mess with your oven. I don't know. All of it came together, and I wasn't expecting to enjoy this one off of the rules, and this is one where, unlike, say, Kintsugi, where I read the rules and was like, ooh, this is really interesting. This is one where I read the rules and was like, we'll see. And I enjoyed it more than I expected, and you enjoyed it more than I expected you to as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Did you feel like a wizard baker?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just felt like I was on Great British Baking Show with magic.
You know what I forgot to do for like half of these?
Compare them to a TV show.
Yeah, you remembered. So we're going to do that now before getting to Arcane Bakery Clash's TV show
No
version.
one cares about my terrible taste
No, I love
in TV.
it. So going way back, Circle the Wagons is what TV show?
Like a really good crime documentary.
Because you like crime documentaries.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Sprawlopolis is...
Grey's Anatomy.
Ooh, that's a high praise for that one from you.
I mean, I know, legitimately, that Grey's Anatomy is not a good show, right? Like, I can sit there and be like, of course, this is ridiculous. This woman has had every tragedy. She has been in a plane crash. She has been in a mass shooting. She has been in a bombing. She's had her husband die. She's had her mom die. She's had her dad die. Her stepmom died of the hiccups. Like, I know that this is an insane show. And like that game is an insane theme. Like build this town, but roads are bad, but roads are good. But like it doesn't make sense. But it's good. It's like warming and fun.
I wish I'd done this around the games. That's all right. Stu is what TV show? I have one in mind. I'm not going to help you.
This isn't a competition. I would say that Stu is...
Can I give you mine?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
It's wacky. It's ridiculous. It's one of those that's not, you might call it one of like the like I want to play this one. And I like consuming it, but it's empty calories at the end of the day, right? It's not, there's nothing super deep about watching people being bad at baking, but it's a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Stu. Kintsugi. This is an interesting one.
This is a show that you wanted to be really good, but was not.
Right? Like
Riverdale.
Okay.
I'm sure all of your listeners are very familiar with Riverdale. I think there's a lot of crossover between the board game group and CW teen shows. So I think, they're definitely going to get that reference. We're going to be great.
Okay. Riverdale, for folks who don't know, I think is the modern day gritty reboot of Archie Comics fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, score for this one, and then we'll get a TV show for this one. What is your score for Arcane Bakery Clash?
We'd give it a yeah.
Okay, that's good. Solid praise. I would also give this one a 5. Not as enthusiastic of a 5 as Circle the Wagons, but a surprising amount in here, and that memory component is more fun than you think it's going to be. It lasts a little longer than you can bounce back in this game. There can be kind of swings, and it's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable. So I think this one packs a ton into that card count. And for that reason, yeah, for sure, I would also give that a 5. Basically, yeah. So what TV show does this one get? Surely not Great British Baking Show.
None of these games get Great British Baking Show. That would really have to be a special board game.
Is Wingspan a Great British Baking Show of board games?
No.
Oh.
Great British Baking Show of board game would be a game that like makes you feel just warm and fuzzy at the end of it, whether you lost or whether you won, and everyone feels good. You're helping people, even though it's not a cooperative game. Like it's goodness. It's just wholesome and just feels good to play it. That is Great British Baking Show.
Happy Salmon?
In a board game. Perhaps. I've literally only ever played that game before dinner with Jana and Adrian.
On a cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around a bed. Like, I would imagine that game's pretty fun when we're not trying to be very quiet because the children are sleeping. But I don't actually know.
It's wholesome. It's a very wholesome game.
It's a very wholesome game.
And cooperative. And whether you win or lose, usually you still have I don't know. I think that's actually a good comparison. Anyway, Arcane Bakery Clash is?
It's going to be, I don't know. What have we been watching lately? Maybe there's Creek?
This is a family-friendly show. Spelled S-C-H-I-T-T-S.
Everyone knows. This show just won 9 Emmys. If you don't know what this show is, you're living under a rock.
Fair. A stew rock, perhaps. Anyway.
And he brings it full circle.
I do. That's not a bad pick for it. Why? Why does it get that show?
It's fun and it's funny and it's like there's growth to it. There's sort of just like
it evolves.
It gets like it's sort of like how this Creek starts out. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of meat on the bones, and then like there's a lot of character growth and it just feels like good, even though it's still small, short episodes. This one, like it's only 18 cards, but it got some meat on its bones, and it's fun and it's good.
Very good. Well, that's our review of 7 games. Congrats, you made it through 7 games on this show.
Oh, are you guys sick of my voice yet?
I'm
sick of my voice.
I'm not sick of your voice because I get to hear it for the rest of my life.
Yikes! What if you were like, I am also sick of your voice.
I'm also sick of this voice. Till death or this podcast do us part. No. Abby, thank you as always for digging in. Any final thoughts on this, on Button Shy Games as a whole? Do we need more of these in our life?
Yeah, thanks Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle.
Thanks Kyle for sending these over because these were fun. and they really don't take up any space at all. Like the box you sent them in is not a big box, and it's like 5 times too big for all of these games. And you also sent over a few other games that aren't the Button Shy games, and those were also great. So thank you.
Yeah, some of which I talked about earlier on this episode. But you didn't know that because I haven't recorded this episode yet because we're doing this before the other part because time is weird. Anyway.
I mean, also, even if you had recorded the other part, I don't sit and listen in on you recording the podcast.
I'm very disappointed, by the way. I wish you would do that.
That would be so awful. So awful.
Well, anyway, that is the Duke's review of 7 different Button Shy games. I'm not going to recap all the scores, but basically, just remember this. Supertall, bad. Circle the Wagons, Sprawlopolis, really good. Arcane Bakery Clash, surprisingly good. Kintsugi, a little disappointing.
For a guy who literally just said, I'm not going to review all the scores.
Nope, I'm going to do it.
Reviewing all of the scores.
Potions class, fine, I guess. Stew, entertaining and enjoyable. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Abby.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
Thanks again to my wonderful wife for joining us for a review segment there, Sean. So, yeah, before we wrap things up, it's time to get into the Dukes Double Take, where we take a look back at our reviews of previous games. And this week, we are taking a look back at episode 210, Civil Engineering, where we reviewed Stonemaier Games' Tapestry. And by we, I meant you and Matt Walker. It was another one where I wasn't on board, I think because at that time, I was in the running for a job at Stonemaier Games, which I did not get. So, yep, Tapestry. Sean, have you played Tapestry since? Wait, hang on. I'm out of order here. Now I'm messing up.
Man.
Way messing up. Sean, at the time you gave this a provisional 4. You said you weren't sure quite what to make of the game. It felt kind of 5 Tribesy to you, where you're still trying to kind of puzzle it out. You thought it was good, solid design, but you thought it was weighed down by a lot of people's expectations. But you didn't. It was provisional. You didn't find this in the realm of great. It was definitely more good for you. Matt Walker, who you reviewed the game with, gave it a 3. He said even Wingspan is a better engine builder. There's not enough theme in this. It had a mix of frustrating and great moments, and it just didn't resonate with him. So those are your 2 scores, Sean. Have you played this game since?
So, Alex, I have not played this. In fact, I did get rid of this game. I sold it through Empire. And so with that being said, I think that makes it fall to a 3. Game is okay, not exciting while playing the right situation, which that almost doesn't fit. It almost doesn't fit. I just can't say that it necessarily belongs in the duchy. I think this is, when we talk about things like Feld games, how I grade them on kind of a different curve. I have a higher expectation. I kind of have that same higher expectation with Stonemaier games. I love Viticulture. I love Scythe. Wingspan is a 5. So I wouldn't say I love Wingspan. And there was a lot to like about this game, and I think it's a really good design. I know there were some issues with the power level of the different civilizations, and I know that Jamie had kind of taken some feedback and done some research and had created alternate versions, I think. I remember seeing that like a couple months after the game came out. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
And so I think that this is going to find a home in a lot of collections. But ultimately just didn't quite do it for me, which is too bad because I think there's a lot there, and yeah, just didn't quite do it for me.
So I won't get into thoughts of the game as a whole, but I will say this is still on my shelf, partly because Abby enjoyed the game well enough, but really likes the box. Really thinks the box looks good on a shelf. So anyway. Yeah, that's where I'll leave it. That's not where the guild will leave it, though. 2 thoughts on the guild and kind of diverse thoughts. King Splendor said, when I first played the game, I was underwhelmed, most likely due to the hype. After considering selling my copy, I decided to give it another chance and played it a few more times. I found my enjoyment for Tapestry grew with each play. I think being able to get my head around the disconnect between the Civ theme and the mechanisms made the difference. I'm excited to play it more to try out the other Civs I've yet to play. This is a current 5 for me.
And then Brian Weiss says, I was one of those that was quite excited for Tapestry's release. Scythe and Viticulture are two of my favorite games, so a new Stonemaier game that was taking elements from Mombasa and Terra Mystica, I'm in. Unfortunately, I think expectations were set too high. I only played once, and that was all I needed. Very few of the mechanics work for my tastes. There's not much player interaction. The engine building is on rails. The Tapestry cards are very swingy. And worst of all, the buildings are just space fillers. If this wasn't made by Stonemaier and had the hype that it did, no one would have thought much of it. A low 3 for me.
Wow. Yeah. So kind of two different thoughts. And you mentioned expectations for this game, I think, affected it one way or the other. This was certainly,
Absolutely.
This was a very hyped game at the time. And it ultimately, I think, has led to it getting hit with some negative response. And I don't know.
Well, here's what I will say. I will definitely play this game again. And I would even want to try this with the expansion. Plans Employs adds a new card type, new miniatures, new civs, and more, according to the website, which is on pre-order now. So, yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Well, hey, that'll do it for our Duke's Double Take on Tapestry. No idea where it moved for Matt, but for Sean, it's out of the collection. It's gone. Before we wrap things up, it's time to take a look at the best of the rest, the names we did not pick for this episode title. Sean, you should go first because this second one I got to do.
Okay. So Dustin Dowdle suggested Micro Advancement, talking about a bunch of micro games. And the advancement is, you're advancing on those tech trees in Tapestry. Tapestry? Wow.
Tapestry.
What is Tapestry? Tapestry? Oh, that's when you put, you're trying to get sap out of it. So you put
it's where they make Tapatio.
Oh.
At the Tapestry.
No, I said Tapestry. Anyway. You know what, Alex? It's a good thing that I'm not doing a review this episode. Struggling enough as it is. All right. You're up, Alex. Take it away.
Oh, my. I'm once button, twice shy, baby. So that's the name father, Steve O'Rourke, with Once Button, Twice Shy, the most popular episode title on the Guild. He didn't include an explanation, and I think if he had justified it in some way as to how this connected to Tapestry directly, I think it probably could have won. But we thought of some ways it might have connected to Tapestry, referencing some gamers who had high expectations, feeling that they were bitten and then thus twice shy, or attacking in the game. I don't know. There's any number of reasons you could have gone with, but they weren't laid out.
Or that you're too shy to review Stonemaier games because of your friendship.
Yeah, that was the other one that you mentioned. Yeah, and unfortunately, that logic was not laid out. So I award you no points.
You have to show
Steve
your work,
O'Rourke.
people. It's like math class. Show your work.
Unless it's obvious. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it just makes sense.
Yeah, but you still got to show. Okay, anyway.
By the way, I do love that. I love that song. The song's fantastic.
And then Brian Weiss suggested a patchwork of plays, since you got a whole collection of plays, 7 different games, and I guess is Tapestry? It's kind of Tapestry. It's yarn and cloth adjacent.
Yep. That's the reference there.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you do have that sort of mini game that you're playing in Tapestry, and that you're filling in the different things on the board. Feels patchwork-esque. Yeah. So I think it's a good name. King Splendor with I always love a good ridiculous one. The Sturious Class of Bakery Button. And if Sean wasn't around and I was fully in charge of naming episodes, there is a small chance this would have been the name of this episode. Sean had to keep me in check with this one. So referencing Stew, which you just heard a review of, Arcane Bakery Clash, and Potions Class, as well as, of course, Button Shy Games. Pretty clever little blend of games, all in one title.
And then finally, Michael Farnbrook suggested 7 brides for 7 buttons. 7 brides for 7 buttons. I guess Abby will have to fill in for the other 6.
That's a lot of pressure.
Boy, howdy. Oh,
This is a ridiculous way to end this episode, Sean.
well, Alex, then let's just end it. Let's end
Okay.
it. Let's just end it. We're done. We're done.
Wait.
Just
The
this episode.
podcast or this
Well,
episode?
Uh,
Oh boy. Uh-oh.
no, we're good. We're good.
Okay, good.
We're good. All right. Well, that's going to do it then for episode 235. Thanks again to Josh and Gur for helping us name it 7 Button Army. Until next time, if there is a next time, this is Sean.
And Alex?
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to possibly the final episode of the Dukes of Dice. Today's possibly final episode was recorded in the Duchy on October 8th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine titles at ArcaneWonders.com and find out all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, maybe. Until then, game on!